Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Neo Yondaime Hokage in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 31, War Outbreak. Somewhere in the outer territory of Konoha, Sandaime, dressed in his black ninja battle gear, had dealt a heavy blow against the Oto ninjas who challenged him. All of the ninjas were now lying dead on the ground. Not so much as one was left standing. Inma, the Monkey King Sandaime summoned, stood next to Sarutobi among the field of fallen Oto ninjas. Just then some Konoha jounins and a special jounin leaped from the trees and landed down in front of their leader. Sandaime-sama, Hayate greeted as they all knelt down on one knee. "What's your report?" Sandaime asked. "We've finished dealing with the enemies, in our section," Hayate answered between his coughs. Sandaime nodded in acknowledgement. "Any word from the other teams?" "So far, the ambushes are going according to plan," Hayate explained. "All the enemies are being dealt with, but we haven't found Orochimaru yet." Sarutobi sighed at this. Inma saw the look on Sarutobi's face, but he kept his thoughts to himself, at least for now. "Keep your eyes open," Sarutobi advised seriously, "and should he make his appearance, do not engage him. Leave that to either myself, Jiraiya or Tsunade." "Understood." "Hi, Sandaime," the ninjas said in unison before they dashed off speedily to deal with the next group of invaders. "You should have killed Orochimaru when you had the chance to." Sarutobi, Inma sighed. "All this could have been avoided had you done so." "I couldn't do it back then," Sandaime admitted. "As his former sensei, I foolishly let my sentiments and optimism of what he could have been cloud my judgments." Inma stayed quiet. "I will not make that same mistake twice," Sandaime replied with a hardened face. "If I find him, know that I will kill him and correct my past mistake." "Let's go, Inma." Sandaime and Inma then ran off to deal with their next group of enemies while expecting Orochimaru to suddenly appear and attempt to ambush them at any moment. Back at Konoha Stadium. Second match, Abarame Shino against Sabaku no Kankuro. "Contestants, get down here," Genma called, and both Shino and Kankuro made their way down to the arena floor. "I don't have time for this," Kankuro thought, "especially since the invasion is soon to start and I'll need my strength. I'm going to give up," the Sunanin stated as he raised his hand, shocking people. Genma looked at him before sighing. "Winner, Abarame Shino." Shino said nothing as he watched Kankuro retreat back to the stands where the other genins were. Naruto stood with his arms folded over his chest. "Looks like your fight with Temari is up next, Shikamaru," Naruto informed. Shikamaru sighed. "This is completely troublesome, Naruto. I think I'll save everyone the trouble and forfeit." Naruto said nothing as he looked at the lazy genin to his right. Genma announced, "We will now move on to the third match. Will Sabaku no Temari and Nara Shikamaru please come down to the arena floor?" The Sunakunoichi left the stands and made her way over down to the arena. It wasn't long until she arrived where Genma was at, only to see that Shikamaru hadn't followed. Shikamaru was about to forfeit the match until Naruto purposely pushed him over the ledge of the railing, forcing him to land on his feet carefully to avoid any injuries. He turned and snarled at Naruto, who was grinning widely at him in return while giving him the peace symbol with his right hand. "We all need a motivational push from someone sometimes in our lives," Naruto yelled to Shikamaru. "Hey," Temari called out to the lazy genin, "get your ass over here." "Troublesome blondes," Shikamaru mumbled as he walked over to Genma, both her and Naruto. Third match, Sabaku no Temari vs. Nara Shikamaru are both here. "Begin," Genma shouted before he leaped away. Temari gave Shikamaru quite an intense fight, and her wind jutsu with the use of her iron fan was impressive in the eyes of the spectators. Shikamaru soon saw an opportunity to put his fingers together to create a circle and closed his eyes so that he can concentrate. While in this pose he considered every element that was relevant to the situation at hand and analyzed the information to its fullest. When he was done, Shikamaru planned out a battle 10 moves in advance and devised a couple of strategies to use against Temari, causing her to get caught in his cage Shibari no Jutsu, shadow bind technique. In the end, however, Shikamaru forfeited his match instead of defeating Temari, knowing that he had too little chakra to continue. Though Temari won the match, she lost the battle. Tsunade and the jounins were amazed and impressed with Shikamaru's use of planning and execution of tactics. They saw how both he and Naruto were on par with each other in terms of creating and implementing effective strategies to their fullest extent with what was available to them. Though Shikamaru forfeited his match as Naruto knew he would, however, the blonde couldn't help but acknowledge and respect his skills and intelligence. 13 minutes later. The fourth match was supposed to have started and neither Sasuke nor Kakashi showed up yet. Many in the audience were yelling for Sasuke to make his appearance. Tsunade was on the verge of cancelling the match and having the remaining contestants move on to the semi-finals. "Where are you, Sasuke-kun?" Sakura wondered worriedly as she and the other genins were wondering what could have caused Sasuke's delay. "I hope nothing terrible has happened to you." Sai was as neutral and reserved as usual as he kept an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. "Go Dame," Kazekage said. Many in the audience, including the daimyos and other officials among them, came to see the match between my son and the last Uchiha. "Surely you can postpone the match for 10 more minutes." "You surprise me, Kazekage," Tsunade retorted with a calm demeanor. "I didn't think one like yourself played favorites. Since I wasn't going to postpone my own son's match with Hyuga, likewise I will not postpone Sasuke's match just to satisfy your or anyone else's amusement. If Sasuke doesn't show up in the next 2 minutes, he'll be automatically disqualified." The Kazekage was seething in anger on hearing Tsunade's words. This wasn't going as the Kazekage had intended. The crowd was getting restless as they shouted for Sasuke to enter the arena floor. Naruto was leaning against the wall quietly with his arms crossed over his chest as Gaara, Shikamaru, Temari, Kankuro, and Shino were standing by the railing looking down at Genma, who was losing his patience. "Uchiha Sasuke has not shown up. Therefore Uchiha Sasuke is here by dash," Genma began but was cut off when a whirl of leaves came in the middle of the stadium and Sasuke and Kakashi showed up in the middle of the whirl. Sasuke looked even more like the Dark Avenger he was. He wore a black outfit with the Uchiha fan on the back. His hands and legs were covered in bandages and some sort of black belt. Kakashi scratched his head and looked at Genma. Are we late?" he asked, making most of the audience sweat drop. "No, just in time," Genma said, although he was clearly annoyed. Sasuke didn't even listen. Instead he looked up at the stands and smirked when he saw the other genins looking at him. Sasuke lost his smirk however when he saw Naruto step over to the railing with his new appearance. That idiot must really have a death wish, making himself look like a striking resemblance of the Yondaime, Sasuke mentally scoffed. Naruto saw how Sasuke was looking at him but paid it no mind. "Sabaku no Gaara. Get down here," Genma called. Sasuke looked as his opponent came down, and Kakashi went up to the stands. Fourth match, Uchiha Sasuke against Sabaku no Gaara. Begin. Genma almost didn't manage to finish before sand exploded off Gaara towards Sasuke. Sasuke quickly jumped away, and threw some shurikens at the Tsunade hierarchy. The shurikens were stopped by Gaara's sand, and thrown back. Sasuke deflected the shurikens with a kunao and rushed in towards Gaara. The sand went to block him, but Sasuke smirked and vanished. "Wah," Gaara said before Sasuke reappeared behind him. "Okay." Sasuke vanished and reappeared behind Gaara. Naruto thoughtfully contemplated, "He's much faster than before." Sasuke punched Gaara, sending him flying. Before he hit the ground, Sasuke appeared and hit him again. When Gaara landed with a crash, his skin had cracked. "That must be your sand armor." "I'll tear it off," Sasuke said, glanced up at the stands, more accurately at Naruto, and speed off again. He struck Gaara repeatedly, going at speeds equal to what Lee had when he took off his weights during his match with Gaara a month ago during the preliminaries. "How did Kakashi get him to become so fast in 1 month?" Shizune asked, who had changed into her Jounin gear and uniform after Naruto's match with Neji. "He's as fast as I am when I use my mirrors," Haku commented. Kakashi, standing somewhere in the audience, looked on at the fight, or his orange book. No one knew for sure. Sasuke continued his assault, but stopped when Gaara encased himself in a solid sphere of sand. Sasuke stood there panting, and tried to regain his breath. "That sphere. There has to be something with it," Sasuke thought and rushed towards it, delivering a kick to it, only to have his foot almost pierced by spikes of sand. The only thing that saved him was the Sharingan he had activated. Sasuke leaped back and stared at the sphere. He then smirked and undid the belt he had on his right arm. Then he formed the required seals and focused chakra into his arm. Sparks started to fly and a blue glow came from his hand. A sound, like the chirping of a lot of birds, followed. "That's," Naruto said while experiencing Yondaime's disapproval on recognizing the jutsu being performed by Sasuke. "Chidori," Sasuke said. Sasuke then charged towards the sphere as fast as he could. Spikes once again flew at him, but he dodged and plunged the Chidori into the sphere. The jutsu went into the sphere and a scream of pain was followed. "What was that?" Shikamaru asked. "Chidori," Naruto explained, "Kakashi Naizen's only original jutsu. It concentrates a large quantity of chakra into the arm, along with electricity, turning the arm into a sword. The user thrusts his arm straight into the target. Its penetrating power is better than many attack jutsus and it's ranked BA. However, that jutsu only met Yondaime's disapproval for a number of reasons." "Like?" Shikamaru inquired. Naruto retorted, "I'd rather not discuss the details right now. Besides, you'll just find them troublesome anyway." "I would in fact," Shikamaru shrugged before he and the others returned their attention back to the match below. Naruto however turned his attention over to the cage box with narrowed eyes as he focused primarily on the Kaze cage. Suddenly Sasuke's face contracted with pain and he hurriedly pulled his arm out of the sphere. An arm of sand followed, but the arm was different. The sand was much lighter in color, and with blue markings. It also looked demonic. "What is that?" Sasuke thought while looking at the sphere. Suddenly he saw the sphere crumbled, revealing Gaara clutching a wound in his chest. Naruto dashed like a blur and leaped over the railing and went straight towards Sasuke and Gaara. The two contestants jumped out of the way as Naruto landed agilely on the ground between them. Everyone was wondering what Naruto was doing interfering with the match. Ignoring everyone else's shouts and stares, Naruto went over and healed Gaara of his injuries. When that was done he walked away from Gaara and Sasuke. Before anyone could interrogate the blonde for his actions, Naruto punched the ground with great force, causing the arena floor within a 20-yard radius around him to crack open and crater. Genma, Gaara, and Sasuke had to jump away from the shock wave that came their way from the force. Everyone's eyes in the audience were as wide of dish plates with their mouths hanging open upon witnessing Naruto's insane strength. Sasuke was stupefied on seeing this for the first time while another part of him was angry on beholding that strength. Not waiting for anyone to say anything, Naruto grabbed and picked up a large slab of the ground and dashed with it towards the cage box. He then jumped into the air and aimed the slab at his target. "Kaa-chan, out of the way," Naruto warned as he hurled the slab with great force straight at the Kaze cage. Tsunade jumped off her seat, leaving the Kaze cage to his death. The Kaze cage however leaped out of the way with only mere seconds to spare before the debris came plunging into the cage box, knocking his bodyguards off their feet as the pieces of the debris flew at them and struck them. Naruto stood there as he awaited the reappearance of the Kaze cage while Tsunade stood by the wall that was to her right. The crowd had confused looks on their faces, but before everyone could say anything, "Hey, Orochimaru," Naruto called out, sending all of the Konoha Jounins and Genins on full alert. Temari and Kankuro appeared next to Gaara, along with their Jounin sensei. Before another word was said, enemies made their appearance. Up in the stands, Kabuto, disguised as an Umbu wearing a dark cloak, hurriedly performed his jutsu, causing the people to start falling asleep. Most of the ninjas recognized the genjutsu and cancelled it, including Sakura and Sai. They rushed towards where the Genins were and snapped them out of the genjutsu before they hurried over to help their respective Jounin senseis who were encountering some enemy ninjas from Suna and Oto. More Konoha Jounins and Umbu were making their entry into the stadium while combating against the invaders. The mystery girl also dispelled the genjutsu, but she pretended to remain asleep so as to not blow her cover and reveal herself just yet, though she kept a careful watch over what was happening around her. Orochimaru, still in his Kaze cage appearance, was not happy with how things were turning out. Tsunade was about to attack him when Orochimaru reached into his robes and threw a bag at her. The bag burst open on her, causing her to freeze dead in her tracks. Orochimaru smiled evilly upon seeing Tsunade's hemophobia kicking in as she saw that she is now covered in blood. He punched and knocked her down before turning to Naruto, who was now looking at him with deep hatred. "Surrender, you bastard," Naruto ordered with no hesitation in his voice, your ambitions will come to nothing, and as I speak your invading forces are being overrun and ambushed and running into the death traps we've set in place for them. We've learned of your invasion long in advance. Though Orochimaru didn't show, but in truth he wasn't about to fight Naruto, especially since he defeated Itachi. He heard the rumors about Naruto, and from what he was seeing about the blonde was more than enough to strengthen his hate for the blonde shinobi. Anko had to restrain herself from charging in and trying to attack Orochimaru, knowing fully well that such a reckless course of action wouldn't end in her favor. It took me a while to find where you were, Naruto continued. That was until I ran into one of your subordinates earlier today and tortured him cruel enough until he was willing to talk and reveal your whereabouts, which was why I was late for my match. Your Oto ninja though didn't survive the injuries. That's not the Kaze, Baki asked in surprise. Naruto explained in a calm voice, no. In fact, from what that Oto ninja explained to me, your Kazekage have been dead for some time. He was killed by Orochimaru and his body was dumped into a ditch some distance not too far from Tsunagakur. Why he left your Kazekage's body where it could be found by you guys is beyond me. Baki felt rage course through his body on learning this. Damn you, Orochimaru! Were my fellow Sunanins and I that inattentive to notice this? Baki asked himself. Gaara felt nothing from learning about his father's death. To be honest, he really didn't care. Temari and Kankuro didn't know what to feel at the moment. Sure, the Kazekage was their father, but they never actually had a genuine familial relationship with each other. I don't have time for this, Orochimaru said as he gave a signal to his men to surround and kill Naruto. Doing as ordered, the mixed company of Oto and Suna shinobis, who were completely unaware of their Kazekage's death, came and surrounded Naruto. There's nowhere for you to run, boy, said one of the Oto ninjas, prepare to die. You ought to take your own advice, Naruto retorted coldly as he extended his right hand while gathering and concentrating chakra into a sphere. The Jounins and Orochimaru recognized that glowing blue orb of chakra. That jutsu, Orochimaru said with narrowed eyes. A moment later, 9 of Naruto's hidden disguised kage bushins appeared from different sections from around of the sleeping audience and pulled out a particular brand of kunaus that the Jounins immediately recognized. Naruto, reaching into his trench coat with his left hand, pulled out the 10th one of his special kunaus. Those kunaus, Kurane said in disbelief as the clones threw the kunaus in random directions within the enemy ranks. What everyone saw in the next second was a yellow flash followed instantaneously by enemies ninjas within a 60-yard radius around Naruto slaughtered with baseball-sized holes through their chests. That was when everything in seeing range nearly paused. A most powerful and feared jutsu that hasn't been seen in over 13 years was just performed, along with another powerful jutsu. The Jounins were left speechless, as were the Genins and the 4 surviving Sunanins. In an instant, all of the enemy ninjas that they were fighting were wiped out by Naruto all by himself. Kabuto managed to escape being instantly killed when he took to flight and left the stadium after performing the genjutsu. The same dark brown-haired girl was left utterly stupefied at what she personally eyewitnessed with her own eyes. She have heard many things about Yondaime's feared jutsu, but she never in her life thought she lived to see it performed by the one who self-proclaimed himself the second Flash, who astonishingly was living up to his title. Naruto-kun, the girl wondered with her gaze fixed on the blonde shinobi, were you always this powerful and held back? The remaining enemy ninjas that barely escaped from being within Naruto's attack range were now cowering in fear, especially since they knew about Yondaime's history. They knew that enemy villages long ago had instructed their military battalions to cut their losses and flee on sight if they ever saw Yondaime in the battlefield, and right now that's exactly what they were about to do. However, that wasn't to be, as they were met up with an ambush from more of Konoha's forces entering the stadium. You, Orochimaru said insultingly while trying to mask his fear, you're Konoha's Yellow Flash. Correction, Naruto stated, I'm Konoha's second Flash. As Orochimaru saw, things weren't going as planned, and seeing Naruto's power only made things worse. Those 2 jutsus, Lee asked, what were they? That ball of chakra was the Raise-Non, an A-rank close-range attack jutsu, Guy explained. The flash you saw was the High-Ration, an S-rank long-range attack jutsu, both of which were prized and powerful jutsus created by our late Yondaime Hokage. The High-Ration was the jutsu that made Yondaime extremely hated and feared by many of our enemies as Konoha's Yellow Flash. I thought those jutsus died with the Yondaime, Kurane said. Evidently they didn't, Kakashi added in, and Naruto is clearly capable of using them in the most effective way he can. You don't seem at all surprised by this, Kakashi, Asuma said suspiciously, seeing that those were your sensei's jutsus. I wonder how the boy obtained and learned those jutsus. Kakashi gave no reply as he looked at Naruto before he visualized an image of Yondaime over Naruto. The genins couldn't believe what they were hearing and saw with their own eyes. For so long they wondered just how powerful was Naruto, since they never saw him use any real powerful jutsus in front of them before. And the first real devastating jutsus he used in front of them for the first time were A and S rank jutsus of the Yondaime. The Sunanins were aware that Naruto was indeed very powerful, especially with Kyuubi being sealed into him. But there was no trace of Kyuubi's chakra at all the entire time. Therefore, all of what's transpired up till now was all Naruto. They knew that if they were Naruto's enemies, they'd be among the dead right now, if not long ago. Sasuke didn't know what to make out of what he just saw with his own eyes. Not too long ago, Naruto was surrounded by enemy ninjas that were about to kill him, and in a second they were all massacred, with the remaining few in the stadium to be overtaken by the Konoha shinobis. The Uchiha wondered how Naruto managed to attain such great powers and why he, as the last Uchiha, the elite, couldn't possess that power he felt he rightfully deserved. So Tsunade's son can perform Minato's jutsus, Orochimaru realized, that can only mean one thing. Just then giant brown snakes burst through one of the walls of the stadium. Gaara took action and summoned the powers of his sand, forming a giant body of sand for himself in the form of a tanuki as he countered and battled with the snakes. The sight of Gaara's new appearance caught all but Naruto, Orochimaru, and the Sunanins off guard. Baki-sensei, Temari, Kankuro, and I will deal with the snakes and the rest of the Oto Nins, Gaara yelled as he and his team went into action. We'll catch up with you later. This surprised Orochimaru entirely as he watched them head out. He didn't expect Gaara and his team to have sided with Naruto. That explains the information leakage, Orochimaru figured angrily before picking up the motionless blood-covered Tsunade from the floor and making a rapid exit from the stadium with her as his human shield. Damn it, Naruto swore as Kakashi and the others assembled around him. Kakashi Naizen, Naruto ordered, take both yours and Guy and his team with you and deal with the other invading Sunanins who chose not to side with Baki like the others. Anko-chan, head over to where Iruka and the other Chiryunins are. Check on the children and civilians with them and make sure that there were no casualties among their number. Kurane, Asuma, take your teams and deal with the Oto ninjas around the area. And Genma, try to track down and bring in Kabuto, alive if possible. What should we do, Naruto-kun? Haku asked, fully dressed in her ninja attire and gear right after the attack started. Like the others, she was now wearing a Konoha headband tied around her head. Haku-san, Naruto said, I want you and Shizune Nichin to help any of our injured nins. Both of your medical expertise will be needed if anything. The genins looked at Naruto in awe. He wasn't talking like another genin, rather he was talking as one with authority that the jounins seemed to respect. Who put you in charge? Sasuke asked. The fact that I'm the one who discovered and explained the invasion plan to Kaa-chan and Sandaime-san 2 months ago places me in charge here, Naruto replied authoritatively, so shut up and do as I instruct you and the others. Sasuke felt the curse seal trying to act up on him, forcing him to fight against it momentarily. Kakashi was ready to knock Sasuke unconscious if the curse seal got out of hand. What are you going to do? Anko asked. I'm going after Kaa-chan. She was taken by Orochimaru, Naruto answered before he turned and ran off in the direction Orochimaru went into with Yondaime-like speed. The genins were shocked and astonished at the speed, to say the least. Was Naruto always this strong and yet held back against us, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked in disbelief. Naruto has always been a surprising ninja for as long as I've known him, Kakashi replied. The others knew the copycat Cyclops was hiding something, but they decided not to press on the subject as everyone went to do as Naruto instructed them. All but Kakashi, Anko, and Shizune had many questions running through their heads about Naruto's hidden abilities and the fact that he could execute Yondaime's signature jutsus. But they saw that they weren't going to get the answers now as they went about with what they had to do. As this was going on, 3 Konoha Umbu were following after Naruto, the leading one wearing a dull pale white colored hooded cloak, and the other 2 in down dark gray cloaks. Anko wanted to follow after Naruto since she also had a personal score to settle with her traitorous former sensei. But she placed aside her personal vendetta to take care of other matters that needed her attention. All the while, the mystery girl had sneaked away unnoticed and left the stadium. While on her way to her next destination, she took out and efficiently killed the Oto ninjas who crossed her path. Meanwhile, Orochimaru, who had already discarded his Kazekage robes and in his actual clothes, by this time had made a very large distance between himself and Konoha, with Tsunade being carried over his shoulders. They were deep in the forest and not another ninja from Konoha was in sight. Several moments later, Orochimaru stopped where he was after reaching a very large and wide hill-like clearing in the forest. Curse that dem brat, Orochimaru thought, he's more of a problem than I thought. The snake Sunin then sensed a presence coming towards him, a strong and fast one. That's either Jiraiya, Sarutobi-sensei, Orochimaru said to himself, or dash. Orochimaru jumped out of the way when he saw something leap into the air and dash down at him before punching the ground with great force, thus making a crater in it. You certainly have your mother's insane strength, Orochimaru commented before throwing Tsunade at him. Naruto hurriedly ran and caught Tsunade before they both fell to the ground. Naruto soon got up and lifted Tsunade off him as he pulled out a cloth and wiped the blood from off her face and arms. Geez Kaa-chan, Naruto remarked, you'd do well to slow down on the sake and put off some weight. The reply to that statement was nearly instantaneous when Tsunade's eyes snapped open before bopping Naruto hard on the head. Ow, Naruto cried before rubbing his head, sheesh. What was that for? Never make snide remarks about a woman's weight or her passion, Tsunade rebuked. Even should her passion lead to alcohol poisoning, Naruto mumbled under his breath, only to be bopped on the head again, hey knock it off. Tsunade snorted before turning her attention to Orochimaru. Naruto too turned and looked at the snake son in whom everyone in Konoha hold the utmost hatred for next to Itachi, two of Konoha's worst S-class traitors. Orochimaru, Tsunade spat bitterly. Tsunade, Orochimaru replied with a twisted smile, it's been a long time. Too bad that this little reunion lacks a captive audience. Don't worry about that, Naruto retorted, you'll be long dead before an audience can witness your execution by our hands. Mother and child, working together for a common cause, Orochimaru remarked, tell me Tsunade, who fathered this child with you? Tsunade and Naruto tensed on hearing that. I've been interested in Naruto for some time after I learned that you had a son, Orochimaru explained. What always escaped me was the fact that I was never able to decipher who you had a child with since your fiancé had died long ago, and you didn't bear children for him whatsoever. After seeing the jutsu Naruto performed against my men not too long ago, I realized then who his father was, since only someone who's of his bloodline descent can use the Hiraishin, isn't that right, son of Namikaze Minato? Naruto and Tsunade's eyes widened when they saw that Orochimaru found out who Naruto's father is. Yes, I know about the Hiraishin, Orochimaru continued, it was one of the very jutsus I can never get a hold of because of how Minato uniquely created it. And the fact that you have a striking resemblance to Minato never did escape my notice. However, I at first couldn't figure out why, since his wife and unborn child died on the night of Kyubai's attack. So tell me Tsunade, did Jiraiya's former prized student have a secret one-night stand with you despite your age, or were you both lovers in secret? It's evident that the Namikaze clan isn't quite extinct yet, seeing that you've mothered the last heir of Yondaime. I've heard just about enough from you, Tsunade spat distastefully, and who I had a child with is not your concern. Let's get back to the previous subject that was at hand, why don't we? Naruto suggested. I believe Kaa-chan and I were just about to finish you. Before either Tsunade or Naruto could do anything, 4 ninjas popped out from the trees and assumed their positions from 4 corners in the form of a large square about 80 yards wide at all sides. They were the Otagaku no Shinobi Yoninshu, Hidden Sound Shinobi 4 people, also known as the Sound 4, Orochimaru's elite bodyguards. These Oto Shinobis were Teiwa, Jirobe, Kidomaru, and Seikon. Going through a complex series of hand signs, the 4 Oto ninja performed a 4 Violet Flames battle encampment barrier jutsu called the Shishi Engine, 4 Flames formation, a box-like barrier around the area of Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Naruto. Naruto looked and saw a few birds fly into and touch the barrier only to burst into flames and die instantly. To prevent themselves from being attacked and thus bringing down the barrier, the Sound Four created the same barrier around themselves. God damn it, Naruto swore when he saw the situation he and his mother were in. The three Konoha Umbu that were following Naruto earlier soon arrived at the scene and saw the situation Tsunade and Naruto were in. Tsunade-sama! Naruto-sama, they yelled out as they ran over to them. Don't touch the barrier, Naruto warned, you'll burst into flames and die if you do. The three Umbu stopped just 2 feet away from the barrier. They looked all around and saw that there was nowhere for them to enter through. Looks like we have an audience after all, Orochimaru said. Tsunade and Naruto took note of Orochimaru's calm demeanor in spite of being outnumbered within the barrier. Stay alert Naruto, Yondaime warned, he's up to something, whatever it is. Naruto mentally nodded as he, Tsunade and Orochimaru started focusing chakra around themselves. The ground from underneath them was cracking and particles of dirt and pebbles were rising to the air. Don't expect me go easy on you Tsunade just because you're my former teammate, Orochimaru warned. I wasn't expecting you to do so, Tsunade retorted, nor was I planning on going soft on you either. I hope neither you nor your son disappoints me, Orochimaru shot back as he looked at Tsunade and Naruto with strong tension. Naruto and Tsunade likewise looked back at Orochimaru with the same feeling of killing intent as the ground continued cracking with particle floating into the air with their clothes dancing with the movements of the winds being made from their chakra levels rising. This is amazing, said the Umbu to the right of the one wearing the pale white cloak. It feels like the air is pushing down on us, the Umbu in the pale white cloak who was in the middle of the two besides him. He and the other two observed the three fighters inside the dome. After several moments, which felt like an eternity, Naruto and Tsunade went charging at Orochimaru who went charging at them also. Smiling wickedly, Orochimaru ran through a series of hand seals and stopped running. Tsunade and Naruto then saw and heard him say, Kukiyos, Edo Tensei. What? Tsunade said to herself, being caught off guard by the jutsu being used. A purple portal of some sort opened up on the ground in front of Orochimaru. Number 1, Orochimaru called out as a casket with the kanji for first appeared and stood upright. What the hell, Naruto said when he saw the casket popped out from out of the ground upright. Number 2, Orochimaru called out when another casket with the kanji for second appeared. What is this jutsu? Naruto asked out loud, being unfamiliar with the jutsu Orochimaru was using. Number 3, Orochimaru said when a 3 casket emerged from the portal. What kind of summoning is this? Naruto thought out loud in bewilderment. Number 4, Orochimaru said as the final casket came from out of the ground before the portal closed, this casket being the shortest and standing upright next to the casket that appeared first. Tsunade recognized the 4 caskets and upon seeing them, she felt as though her heart was in her throat. The slug Sunin was in pure denial at the horrific realization that dawned on her. He did not do what I think he did, Tsunade said with a shaky voice as the 4 standing caskets covers gradually fell down onto the ground. Orochimaru, the Umbu, Naruto, and Tsunade watched as the covers fell to the ground before 4 figures became visible from within the caskets. The color of their skin was dull gray and their heads were bent down towards the ground. Are those people? The Umbu in the pale white cloak exclaimed with a shocked expression on his face hidden under his mask. Those people, the Umbu to the right of the one in the middle asked. Now what will you do, Tsunade? Orochimaru asked with a warped smile on his face. Tsunade immediately recognized them, as did Naruto who have seen a number of pictures of them. Tsunade seemed to have lost the color in her face as she looked at the 4 people in front of her. Moments later they opened their eyes and took a few steps from out of the caskets and stood where they were. One of them, who was the shortest of the 4, was a young boy no older than 12 years dressed like a Konoha genin with medium brown hair standing next to a man with black hair who was geared in black clothes and brownish-red armor. Nei-chan, the boy said with no emotions as he stopped and stood where he was with the other 3 standing beside him, is that really you? You've grown older. A man dressed as a Konoha jounin with long light lavender hair spoke, Tsunade, it's been such a long time. You look exactly as I remember seeing you. Amazing how time has been gracious to you. Tsunade at this point was breaking down mentally and emotionally. Tsunade, said the oldest of the 4 with black hair, my granddaughter, I never thought I'd see you again. You've grown since I last saw you. My word Tsunade, said the second oldest who had white hair and geared in black and blue armor, you've matured into quite a woman. But I don't recognize the one standing next to you. Is that young boy your son, I presume? You have a son, the one dressed as a jounin said with a disbelief-looking feature one could make in the zombie-like condition he and the other three were in. I see that you managed to move on with your life despite my untimely passing. It's a shame that I couldn't have been the one to father and raise a child with you. So this young man is my great-grandson, the man with long black hair said. He looks strong and quite distinguished. From the looks of it, it's clear that you've done quite a job raising your son into quite a shinobi, Tsunade. Tsunade was sobbing with tears pouring down her face. Naruto couldn't believe what was happening. In front of him and Tsunade were the four men who were important people in Tsunade's life while they were alive many years ago. Tsunade looked like she was about to have a nervous breakdown as she spoke. I didn't expect to see any of you in a form like this. I'm terribly mortified, and I'm so very sorry. This is bad, the Umbu in the middle noted, that summoning technique. The other two looked at him. Who are those four? The one to the right asked. Shodame-sama, Nidame-sama, Naruto acknowledged, Nawaka-jisan, Dan-san. The Umbu gasped in shock at this revelation. Yes, the Umbu in the middle confirmed, the one with black hair is Shodame-sama, Tsunade-sama's grandfather. The one with white hair is Nidame-sama, Tsunade's granduncle. Both have been praised as the best ninjas of their time, and they're the Hokages who built Konoha to what it is today. And the kid with them is Nawaka, Tsunade-sama's kid brother, and the one with lavender hair is Dan, her late fiancé from what I've heard. Back inside the dome. Edo Tensei, Nidame said as he turned to his older brother Shodame, this kid summoned us with a kinjutsu? The four caskets fell to the ground with a thud. Quite a guy. If that's the case, Shodame said as he turned to Tsunade and Naruto, then Tsunade, we must fight both you and your son. You twisted bastard, Naruto called Orochimaru, I'll kill you before this is all over. Enough chit-chat, Orochimaru said feeling confident that the outcome was now in his favor. It's time we get this started. Isn't that right, Go Dame? This title caught the attention of all four of them. Go Dame, Nawaka said, so you became Hokage and claimed grandfather's title in my place. It sucks that I was killed before I was able to fulfill my dreams of becoming Hokage. Tsunade, Dan said, you're Hokage? Since we didn't live long enough to live out our dreams, I see that you've lived out our dreams in our place. Dan and Nawaka then saw the necklace around Naruto's neck. Nei-chan, Nawaka said, my nephew is wearing grandfather's necklace, the same necklace you gave me on my birthday. So becoming Hokage is his dream too. This same revelation came to Dan as well, though he said nothing. That matters not right now, Orochimaru cut in, you four have more important things to do. I see that in all periods, Shodame said, there is war. But you enjoy war, don't you? Orochimaru chuckled with a twisted smile as he walked up to the four of them from behind with four kunais with red seal tags attached to them in his hands, each seal tag designated and prepared for each one of the ninjas he summoned. Mocking the dead like that, Tsunade said bitterly with tears still streaming down her face, nothing good comes out of trifling with time. Orochimaru just smiled darkly at her, though he wasn't paying much attention to Naruto however. And speaking of the blonde male, Naruto was feeling pure hatred and rage coursing through him, as his blue eyes were changing back and forth from normal to red with cat-like slits in the middle. A pair of 3 facial whiskers was gradually appearing on his cheeks, though not strongly visible, while his fangs slowly started growing longer inside his mouth. Damn it, Naruto, Yondaime yelled while trying to help keep Kyuubi's influence at bay, get a hold of yourself. You can't fight if your mind is clouded with uncontrolled primal fury. Nei-chan, Nawaka said, I'm afraid we have to kill both you and your son. Chapter 32, Battle for Konoha. In another part of Konoha. Come on kids, we have to get away from here and to safety, Iruka said, directing the academy kids to a safe sanctuary location. This is not a drill. Let's move quickly and quietly. The other Chiyunins were directing the civilians in the crowd who were going in the same direction as the children. Kano Amaru, Mogi, and Udon were among the children and crowd being led to safety, as were Ayam and her father Toki. What do you suppose is going to happen, Kano Amaru-chan? Mogi asked as she and Udon hugged and held on to Kano Amaru. I don't know, Kano Amaru admitted but became confident, but I'm sure that my grandfather will protect us, as will Naruto Nyakan. They're strong, I know it. Whatever happens they'll come through for us. That's right, Ayam agreed. You kids don't have anything to worry about. Nothing bad will happen to us. The shinobis of our village will defend all of us from danger. A moment later, Anko arrived at the where Irika and the other Chiryunins were gathering all of the children and civilians to safety. How's the evacuation and crowd control going? Anko asked as she hurried over to Irika. So far so good, Irika replied. Most of the civilians and children have already been evacuated and placed in designated sanctuaries around the village. The few who are left are being gathered as we speak. Once that stage is complete, we'll use all of our forces and eliminate the enemy. That was when Irika, Anko and the other Konoha ninjas with them were met with an ambush from the attacking Oto ninjas. You think you can get away from us that easily? One of the Oto ninjas said before he and his fellow Oto ninjas threw shurikens toward the children and civilians. Shit, Anko cursed before she quickly did some hand signs and countered, Sene Jashu, hidden shadow snake hands, ... Acting fast, Anko projected a number of snakes from her wrists to stop the shurikens before turning on the enemies to injure, poison or constrict them. Hurry and get everyone out of here, Anko yelled to Irika, who nodded and did as advised. While this was going on, Anko took the fight to the enemies. I'm in the mood for some blood, Anko smirked. Who wishes to quench my thirst? The only thirst I'll quench will be that of my sword with the blood of your own, one of the Oto ninjas shot back as he and the other charged at Anko. The snake Jounin effectively killed a number of the shinobis coming at her, but soon she was being outpowered. Irika came and aided her as best as he could, but was eventually wounded in the shoulder by one of the Oto ninjas. Idiot, Anko remarked as she pulled Irika away from the fight, though she sustained injuries of her own. I thought I told you to get the people out of here. Perhaps I can be of some assistance, said a new female voice before she shouted, Supirito Sudareku no Jutsu, Spirit Strike Technique. The armored female warrior summoned 4 mystical fox spirits that were imbued with the elemental powers of fire, water, wind, and lightning. The mystical foxes obeyed women's voice as they went and fought for her. The fiery fox blazed against the invaders. The combined elemental assaults resulted in the many deaths of the attacking Oto nins. Who are you? A stunned Irika asked yellow, black, and purple armored woman. I am Sakia, Sakia answered. I was summoned and sent here by Naruto-sama to provide you with cover fire and protection. Your timing couldn't be any better, Anko said as she helped Irika over to where the others were. Irika-sensei, Kano Amaru cried out when he saw that his academy teacher was wounded. Are you okay? I'm fine, Kano Amaru, Irika assured. Nothing a medic nin can't fix. Go, Sakia ordered. I'll hold off the enemies. Get yourself and the others out of here. Who are you? Kano Amaru asked, not recognizing the stranger. Reinforcement Naruto sent to aid us, Irika said. Let's get out of here now. I told you Naruto Nyakin would come through for us. Kano Amaru cheered confidently as he and his friends followed Irika and Anko as they left together with the rest of the children and civilians, leaving Sakia to deal with the Oto nins coming at her. Holding her golden staff, Sakia charged into the direction from where the enemy ninjas were coming before dealing death blows to them. She also used her staff to make 2 pink rings around herself, which were then shot at the enemies. Meanwhile at Konoha Hospital, Shizune, Haku, and the Jounins with them were warring against the Oto ninjas attempting to kill everyone at the hospital. Finding a fire hydrant, Haku ran over to it and started forming one-handed seals. Hihutsu, Sensatsu Suisho, secret technique, flying water needles, Haku called, and the water burst from the hydrant and rose up and turned to ice needles. The needles flew at the Oto ninjas, striking them with deadly efficiency. Soon more Oto and Suna ninjas started flying in and surrounded the girl. Time to die, said one of the Oto shinobis. If you wish it, so be it. I will not let you kill anyone Naruto-kun and I regard as precious people, Haku said as she performed a different set of hand seals, Hihutsu, Makyo Hyusho, secret technique, demonic ice mirrors, ... The water from the hydrant rose up and formed mirrors of ice arranged into a sphere around the invading ninjas. Having them trapped inside the dome, Haku wasted no time in slaughtering them while moving speedily through her mirrors. Go now and get everyone in the hospital to somewhere safe, Shizune said to Ebisu. I'll stay and help Haku fight against our attackers. Ebisu nodded as he and a few other Jounins went to do as instructed. Shizune then turned to the invaders in front of her. We have you trapped, said one of the Oto ninjas, there's nowhere for you to run. I had no intentions of running, Shizun retorted as she went perform some hand seals and formed a chakra scalpel in her hand and charged forward, using it to cut through the hearts of some of the Oto and Suna nins that came at her. Doing another set of hand seals, she yelled, Takujiri. Out of her mouth, a huge cloud of purple poison came and blanketed the area, killing many of the Oto and Suna ninjas who breathed in the gas. After the gas cleared, Haku ran over to Shizun. Are you alright? Haku asked. Just fine, Shizun assured, let's get everyone out of here while we're in the clear. Nodding, Haku hurried with Shizun to help get the remaining few at hospital to their designated safe sanctuary. It wasn't long until the evacuation was complete, allowing Konoha forces to go on a full counterstrike against their enemies. In another part of Konoha, the Oto and Suna ninjas who were still on Orochimaru's side were being dealt with by the Konoha Umbu and Jounins. You're not getting a step further, said a masked purple-haired Umbu woman after she and her fellow Umbu hurled multiple shurikens and kunaus at the oncoming invaders. In Konoha Forest. What are you waiting for, said one of the Suna ninjas, he's just one man. Hyuga Hayashi, with his Byakugan activated and the Kaiton, took out and killed the group of ninjas with ease that thought they had him surrounded. The Hyugas are the strongest in Konoha, Hayashi stated, remember that. Elsewhere in Konoha, Narashikaku bound the Suna shinobis under his grasp with his Kage Shibari no Jutsu, Shadow Bind technique, and with the next part of his jutsu, Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu, Shadow Neck Bind technique, he had shadow hands grow from the shadow binds he had them in and strangled them to death. Akimichi Chauza, converting his body fat into chakra by using his Beiku no Jutsu, multi-size technique, turned into a giant and with his staff he batted, swapped, and crushed the Oto ninjas under his feet. Yamanaka Inoichi with the use of his Shinran's Hein no Jutsu, mind confusion technique, caused the Suna and Oto ninjas he was fighting against to turn on each other against their will and kill each other. For the Ino Joshika trio, it was like old times during their younger days. On the building rooftops, Inuyasukitsum and her dog companion Kuromaru, along with her daughter Hana, age 18, a jounin and veterinarian, charged at the Suna shinobis on the building rooftops. Hana's canine companions, which were running alongside her, were called the Himura Sankyode, Himura three brothers also known as Himura triplets. Let's go Kuromaru, Tsum yelled as she charged forward with her large dark gray and white dog with an eye patch over its right eye following alongside her. Sure thing, Kuromaru replied in a dog language the Inuzuka clan understood. In another part of Konoha Forest, Abumarashivi and his clan members used their colony of Kikai bugs to drain the chakra from the invading ninjas and leaving them unable to use their arms and other parts of their bodies, thus making them open to be easily slaughtered. Sometimes your worst enemies are the smaller creatures many don't pay attention to, Shivi remarked emotionlessly before retracting his Kikai bugs back to him. He and his fellow clan members then ran off to handle the other invaders. Outside Konoha Stadium, Guy, Kakashi, and their teams were still fighting off the Suna and Oto ninjas. They were fighting together against them but they got separated during the fight and were getting outnumbered. Lee used his reverse lotus and Goken, strong fist, aka Iron Fist Taijutsu style, to deal with the enemies coming at him while Tenten pulled out her scroll and rained out multiple types of weapons upon the enemy ninjas. Though Niji wasn't among them because of the condition Naruto placed him in earlier however, the two genins were still able to hold their grounds against their attackers as they covered each other's backs. Sasuke, resorting to the Sharingan and the skills and fire jutsus from his clan and the jutsus he learned from Kakashi, handled the invaders with fast-moving speed. Sai, drawing things with a brush on his scroll, brought his creations to life, giving them an increased size and the ability to move. With his Sumi Bunshin, Ink Clone, and his Kojojiga, Super Beast's imitation picture, Sai battled against the mixed company of Suna and Oto nins. Sakura was injured by one of the Suna ninjas before Sai came and used a Kojojiga to kill the Suna ninja before he could finish Sakura. I should go and get back up with Kakashi, Guy thought to himself, the enemies have us outnumbered. Guy battled through the numbers of invaders and reunited with Kakashi to regain the upper hand. No matter how many it was they were not going to beat Guy and Kakashi at the same time. Kakashi, Guy said, they have numbers as their advantage. Then let's turn it up a notch, said a new feminine voice, Kitsune Funkami no Jutsu, Fox sealing paper technique. That was when hundreds of magical, red spell papers came flying and attached to the invading Suna and Oto shinobis, bounding to them momentarily before they all exploded in fiery explosions. The enemy shinobis were killed from the surprise attack, leaving the Konohanins baffled at what just happened. Who or what just helped us? Tenten asked. I did, Tao replied as she jumped from one of the roofs and down to the ground over to them. The fox-like features of the humanoid newcomer dressed in ceremonial battle garbs and mask didn't go unnoticed by the Konohanins. Naruto-sama summoned and sent my older sister and me here to help against the invasion, Tao added. Naruto-kun did that, Lee asked in amazement, but how dash? A summoning contract, Sai answered for him, seeing the kitsune features, it's clear to say that he possesses a contract with foxes. Tao nodded wordlessly. Kakashi confirmed, yes, Naruto is the youngest shinobi in this village with a summoning contract. The genins with the exception of Sai were shocked at hearing this news. Sasuke asked, how was it that Naruto was given such a contract? That'll be explained later, Kakashi simply remarked. For the time being, Tao interjected, we have an invasion to stop. Sansukurito pen Furishu no Jutsu, Sanskrit pen flash technique. A large, magical calligraphy brush emerged from Tao's long sleeves. Holding the brush, she flew into the air and painted a mystical symbol into the air, which released beams of pure light energy at one of the massive brown snakes, taking out the large reptilian beast on contact. She repeated this pattern on several other giant brown snakes, clearing the way for Kakashi, Guy, and their teams. Kmin, Tao said as she charged forward with Kakashi and the others following close by. Though Guy and the genins had many questions as to how Naruto obtained a summoning contract to summon this powerful warrior, for the most part, they were happy that she was on their side. Elsewhere, Kurane, Asuma, and their team of genins were having their fair share in battling against the Oto ninjas. For them it seemed like the more they fight, twice the number of invaders came their way. Kurane placed several of them in a genjutsu where they ended up killing each other by accident because they confused each other for the enemy. However, some who saw through the genjutsu cancelled it out and continued their battle with the jounins. Asuma was using his trench knives, brass knuckles with a blade on one end, similar to kirambit, made of a special metal that's capable of being infused with chakra. With his hind, flying swallow, he extended the blades with his chakra to injure and take out enemies several feet out of the physical blade's range. They don't know when to give up, Asuma remarked as he dealt another death hand to several more Oto ninjas, they just keep on coming. I know, Kurane agreed, but we won't let up now. I said nothing about letting up, Asuma replied, I'm getting a thrill out of thrashing these weaklings. Ino, Shikamaru, and Chuji worked together with their respective familial jutsus and dealt with the Oto ninjas coming at them. Shikamaru bounded some of them with his Kage Shibari no Jutsu while Ino used Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique, to momentarily infiltrate the minds of a couple of the enemies to have them immobilized, thus allowing Chuji to turn into an Akuden Sensha, human meat tank, a jutsu that allows him to tuck his limbs inside his increased mass and roll and plunge into the enemies at rapid speed. Byakugan, Hinata said before she began her counter-assault against the invading shinobis, Shigo Hakurokya Juyansho. Hinata started spinning with incredible speed with her outstretched hands moving at a speed that was completely blur-like in many directions seeming at the same time. The Oto ninjas who were unfortunate to have been in her path suffered from severe bone breakages and internal bleedings that resulted from extensive blood vessel breakages. Jujin Bunshin, beast human clone, Kika yelled out. This was a modified version of a henjutsu, which allows a user to transform their animal companion into a perfect copy of themselves. Shikyaku no Jutsu, four legs technique, Kiba said. This jutsu gave some increase of strength and speed to Kiba and Akamaru, as well as lengthening their nails into claws. Gachuga, double piercing fang, Kiba yelled out as he and Akamaru started spinning together at a ferocious speed and delivering many powerful beast-like attacks when contact was made with their target enemies. The force of this attack is strong enough to drill through stone, and the results when used against humans were rather devastating as enemies' ninjas were sent flying in multiple directions after being brutally assaulted and torn up. Shino sent his Kikai bugs in a large swarm against the ninjas he had to deal with. With his bugs, Shino used them to sever their limbs and completely drain their bodies of all of their chakra, thus effectively killing them. At another sector of Konoha, Gaara, in his giant tanuki form, battled with the giant snakes without showing any signs mercy as he blasted and power drove through the snakes with his futon, wind release, attacks. Some he slashed with his huge clawed arms and others he trampled with his feet. Tamari, standing on top of one of the roofs of a building, used her Kama Idaki no Jutsu, cutting whirlwind technique, and her more powerful Dekame Take no Jutsu, great cutting whirlwind technique, to create slicing whirlwinds against the Oto ninjas. Because she could guide these forces with her chakra, she easily used them to attack her opponents from great distances. With her fan, she created tornadoes, and with her futon, Tatsu no Ashigoto, wind release, severing pressure, she trapped her enemies and cut them up in the process. In addition, with her fan she used it to catch opponents off guard, and with her Fusijin no Jutsu, dust wind technique, she created a wind current to blanket the area in dust, making it difficult for the enemies to stand once it has settled, thus making them easy targets to take out. Kankuro the puppeteer Suna Shinobi, with the use of his puppets, battled against the Oto ninjas, poisoning and killing many who came his way. Baki was close by using his Kaze no Yaiba, wind blade, with fight and kill the Oto ninjas who wanted them dead for turning against them. Meanwhile in the distant forest, Orochimaru was smiling sinisterly with the 4 kunais in his hands tied with futas, special seal tags. In front of him were the resurrected Shodai, Nidame, Nawake, and Dan. A couple of distances away from the 5 of them were Naruto and Tsunade who were looking on at the scene before them. Now, let's begin, Orochimaru said, but before that, I need those 4 to return to their true forms. Please get ready, Tsunade, Naruto. Going over to them, Orochimaru pushed each of the kunais into the backs of their heads. The Snake Sunin took pleasure in seeing the look on Tsunade's face as she watched him shove the kunais into all of their heads from behind. When that task was done, Orochimaru took a few steps back before a burst of white steam came from out of the 4 of them as texture and complexion was being restored to them. Amazing, the Umbu in the middle said, as we speak life is returning to them. What is this jutsu? The Umbu to the right asked. The one in the middle explained, Edo Tensei, reincarnation into the impure world, an S-rank kinjutsu kukiyos, forbidden summoning technique. From what I heard about this jutsu, it revives the dead. Though kukiyos normally involves the use of the caster's blood as compensation for summoning, Edo Tensei however is different. The ninja will first sacrifice a living person to provide the vessel that the dead soul will inhabit. What? The Umbu to the right retorted, you mean those were live hosts? Yes, the Umbu in the middle confirmed, the dead body will then be encased in ash and dirt to resemble the soul of the person that was resurrected. When the ninja wishes to recall the souls, a portal will open in the ground and the caskets holding the bodies will appear. When the caskets open the bodies will be gray and in a state of minor decay. At this point the dead souls are able to remember their past life, but they are at the command of the one who summoned them. One final act will fully wipe out their conscience and make them under the command of the one who summoned them. The ninja will place a futa of some form into the heads of the bodies. This will then virtually restore the bodies and make the summoned persons into pure killing puppets. Though he was at a distance, Naruto was able to hear the Umbu's explanation of the jutsu Orochimaru had used. Complete, Orochimaru said as he watched Tsunade fall to her hands and knees with tears pouring down her face as she continued weeping bitterly. Her greatest dream was now corrupted and turned into her worst nightmare. All of you, look exactly, the way you used to look, Tsunade cried and sobbed with a broken heart, exactly how, I remember all of you. Isn't it wonderful Tsunade? Orochimaru mocked cruelly, aren't you anticipating the satisfaction of being able to battle and hurt the very ones you once called, beloved? I know how much you loved and missed Nawaki and Dan especially, and I couldn't think of a better way of reuniting you with them other than on this day during this event. I wanted you to personally suffer that happiness and joy of such a reunion along with your grandfather and granduncle. And since your son is here with you, you get the added bonus of suffering this very happiness and joy with him. I specially prepared this familial reunion for you. Placed his hands together forming a hand sign, so please, enjoy. That was when the 4 resurrected ninjas started walking away from Orochimaru and past their caskets and over towards Tsunade and Naruto. And speaking of Naruto, he was having problems controlling Kyuubi's influence as his rage was getting the better of him. Red chakra started engulfing him as a feral growl escaped the blonde's mouth as his eyes turned red with black slits in his eyes. His fangs grew longer and sharper and his facial whiskers were jagged and pronounced while his fingers grew longer and sharp claws. Tsunade was too deep into her misery to pay attention to what was happening to her son. Naruto-sama is undergoing a transformation, the Umbu to the left took note of. What jutsu is this? This is no jutsu, the Umbu in the middle corrected, this is the result of that thing sealed into his right hand. You mean, the Umbu to the left said as the one in the middle nodded. The three of them were among the few Umbu who knew the truth about Kyuubi being sealed away and who Naruto's father was. For as long as I've watched the boy grow, the Umbu in the middle continued, that creature has never been able to make itself that manifest since the seal on Naruto-sama's hand kept the creature under control. In the emotional state both Tsunade-sama and Naruto-sama are in, it might make things more complicated. Shodame's eyes fell on Naruto and upon seeing the changes he was undergoing, he immediately ran through a complex series of hand signs. When he was done, he rushed at the blonde speedily with his right hand that now had the kanji for sit on his palm. Hokage Shiki Jijai Juunjutsu. Keikuan Nitten Shuishu, Shodai cried out as she rushed past Tsunade and straight into Naruto, slamming his right hand hard into Naruto's chest. Naruto gave a cry of immense pain before falling down on his knees and hand withholding his chest with his free hand as he felt Kyuubi's presence and chakra being completely suppressed as he was changing back to normal, with his facial whiskers also disappearing off his face. The crystal around Naruto's neck glowed and attached to Shodai's right hand like in the form of a chakra chain allowing Shodai to effectively shut down Kyuubi's influence. When he was done, the shine radiating from the crystal died out, as did the chakra chain that was attached to Shodai's right hand. Both the Umbu and Orochimaru were taken by surprise by what just transpired. "You're the Jinhyuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune," Shodai said, causing Orochimaru's ears to immediately perk up on hearing that. That brat is the container of Kyuubi no Kitsune, Orochimaru thought in surprise, so that Baijuya wasn't killed after all. Yondaime sealed that creature into the body of his own son with Tsunade. Things are getting interesting, especially since the Akatsuki are after all 9 Baijus. It's unreal, the Umbu in the left remarked, he managed to subdue and cancel out Kyuubi's chakra and potent influence with no difficulty. I know, the Umbu in the middle agreed, Shodaime-sama possessed the ability to control the powers of Baijus and the crystal which Naruto-sama wears around his neck responds to Shodai's chakra alone. With it, he can control the Jinhyuriki's powers, which he now neutralized. Those powers were among the reasons why he became Hokage. Naruto acknowledged that the Umbu was telling the truth. He saw that he could neither sense Kyuubi's presence nor was he able to call upon Kyuubi's chakra. He completely neutralized Kyuubi's chakra flow through my body, Naruto acknowledged, knowing that this battle was now going to become even harder. The blonde ninja wasn't prepared for the brute roundhouse kick that the Shodai delivered to the left side of his head, sending his spiraling through the air before crashing onto the ground some distance away from him. Recovering from the assault, Naruto saw Yondaime run up the hill before coming his way with Dan following close by. Tsunade-sama, the Umbu in the pale white cloak called out, they may look like them, but they're not your true grandfather, granduncle, kid brother, and fiancé. The Umbu's words fell on deaf ears as Tsunade stood there on her hands and knees as a broken woman before Noeki approached and stood in front of her. Noeki, Tsunade said lowly to him in hopes that her kid brother would hear her voice and remember her as she looked at him, it's me, your Nichin, please don't do this. Sad to say, her hopes were met with a cruel reality when Noeki gave her a cold and emotionless look before he clenched his fist in and punched her hard in the face. Though a genin, Tsunade, during her younger days, had taught Noeki a few things about chakra control and using it to amplify physical attacks. While Tsunade was on the ground, Noeki went and started punching, kicking, and stomping on Tsunade's form harshly as Tsunade did nothing to either evade or prevent the assaults, being too saddened to fight back. Shit, Naruto cursed in frustration, Kao-chan won't listen to reasoning. She's totally out of it. Naruto evaded the kunaus that were thrown at him from Dan as Yondaime came speedily from the side down the hill from the right and flipped over him and dashed straight at him from the left. Yondaime sent a volley of fast punches and swinging hand chops before he jumped and tried to swing kick Naruto. The blonde however caught the leg before it made contact with his head and started spinning Yondaime in circles before throwing him into Shodai. However, Yondaime managed to regain his control and somersaulted backwards before landing down on his hands then gracefully on his feet as he stood up. Dan rushed at Naruto with his kunao in hand and threw several slashes of his kunao at him. The blonde-haired shinobi dodged the attacks before using his Godame-like strength to punch Dan away from him and over to where Nidame and Shodai were. Naruto then ran and charged into Noeki and body crashed into the genin, sending him flying backwards toward the other three ninjas. Shodai caught his grandson before he hit the ground. "Get ready," Naruto said as she ran through a series of hand seals Sandaime taught him some time ago: Katon, Karyuin Dan, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Missile. Taking in a large gasp of air, Naruto exhaled a stream of fire from his mouth and straight at the four of them. Orochimaru chuckled sinisterly as he watched the battle from a safe distance. While blazing the fires against them, Naruto focused his wind affinity into his attack to intensify the flames until the fire turned white. This in effect caused the temperature to rise rapidly inside the dome while a section of the ground began melting into molten rocks and gravel. Suten, Sujin Haki, Water Release, Water Wall, Nidame yelled out as he formed a few hand seals and blasted a powerful geyser of freezing cold water from out of his mouth and created a giant protective tornado of water around the four of them, countering and dousing the intense flames Naruto is blasting at them and neutralizing the forming lava and heat made from Naruto's attack. Naruto could only say as he stopped his attack while the spinning water cyclone completely cancelled out his attack. "It can't be," the Umbu in pale white remarked in shock. "He used such a high-level water element jutsu in a place with no water. Unbelievable." The water cyclone eventually died down, revealing Nidame and the other three with him unharmed. "It's to be expected from a previous Hokage," Orochimaru remarked as Nidame placed his hands together in a prayer form and said, "Suten, Suishaha, Water Release, Water Shockwave." Summoning a large body of water, he aimed it at Tsunade and Naruto, seeking to drown and crush them at once. With a warrior outcry, Nidame sent the massive body of water at them. Seeing the danger, Naruto formed another hand seal Sandaime taught him and said, "Doton, Doriyuki, Earth Release, Earth Wall." Naruto spat a stream of mud that solidified into a large and high protective shield before the waters came and plunged against and around the wall of hardened mud. "Kage Bushin no Jutsu," Naruto said before a clone puffed into existence. The clone picked up and carried Tsunade bridal style before moving away from the battle site while the real Naruto was left to deal with the four ninjas who were speedily making their way over to him as Orochimaru stood where he was in an air tube inside the waters watching the fight in Tsunade's despair and amusement. Shodai and Dan charged across the surface of the water to double-team Naruto. The blonde made his way over to his attackers and while standing on top of the water, he held his ground and spat fire missiles from out of his mouth and straight into their direction. Shodai effectively deflected all of Naruto's attacks as he dashed at a fast speed on top of the water towards Naruto. Shodai, being one who favors close-range combat, met up with Naruto and engaged in a fierce and brute taijutsu combat with the young teen. Catching Naruto off guard by splashing water into his face, Shodai spun and with a strong fist punched Naruto hard in the face, leaving him momentarily dazed before giving him additional punches as hard as the previous one before jumping and delivering a roundhouse kick into him, sending him flying backwards off his feet. Dan appeared from behind and attempted to strike Naruto from a blind spot with his kunao in hand. However, Naruto managed to catch himself and kick Dan into the waters while using him as the needed momentum to flip forward and get back on his feet before blocking Shodai's punch that seemed to have came from out of nowhere. The two traded blows but with amazing speed before Shodai overpowered him and punched him into a mud wall. Naruto quickly got out of his daze and dodged another punch from Shodai as Noeki came from the left with his two kunaos and attempted drive them deep into Naruto's skull. "Kage Bushin no Jutsu," Noeki said as two solid clones came into existence and ran alongside him, one to his left and the other to his right. "Noeki Jisen knows Kage Bushin," Naruto said to himself in surprise, something Kao-chan failed to mention. "Kage Bushin no Jutsu," Dan said as four solid clones came to life with two at each side of him. "Give me a break," Naruto groaned as the Dan, Noeki, and their clones came and started fighting with him. Naruto couldn't afford to use high ration since he used a large portion of his chakra earlier to perform that jutsu back at the stadium, along the summoning jutsu he used to bring forth Sakia and Tao to help the others back in Konoha. "I'll have to work with what I got," Naruto thought to himself before leaping into the air and throwing some shurikens at Dan, Noeki, and Shodai and did some seals. "Kage Shuriken Bunshin no Jutsu," Naruto called out before hundreds of shurikens flew towards them. The clones were effectively taken out, However, Dan, Nawake, and Shodei shushed from the danger and reappeared 20 feet away from where the shurikens made their hits. Yondaime appeared from under the waters and pulled Naruto down with the use of water-made tentacles and into the waters, forcing the blonde to battle for oxygen which was being deprived from him. Yondaime held onto Naruto with a vice-like grip as the blonde struggled to break free while trying to hold his breath. "God damn it," Naruto swore, "Kaa-chan and Ji-san had told me about how my great-grandfather and great-granduncle fought back then. But taking on the both of them with Dan and Nawake in the state of mind Kaa-chan is in makes this a nearly impossible battle to win. And with Kyuubi's chakra cancelled out and suppressed because of that jutsu my great-grandfather used on me, I can't heal as fast, if at all." Gathering and shaping chakra into his hand, Naruto formed the Raise-Non and thrust it backwards into Yondaime's face, forcing him to let go of his grip. Thrusting through the waters, Naruto burst forth to the surface and gasped for air before jumping and climbing the wall until he was on top of it. Naruto then turned to see his clone dealing with Dan and Nawake who were trying to make their way to Tsunade, who was anything but mentally and emotionally stable. "This is getting ugly," Naruto remarked before powerful water beams came blasting from the waters and into and through the wall, causing large portions of the wall of break off and fall to the ground. Yondaime wasted no time in firing his attacks at the blonde shinobi, seeking to strike the boy with one of his water missiles as they just kept on coming. Seeing portions of the wall were crumbling, Naruto jumped down to the ground while evading the falling gravel crashing onto the ground as the waters dispensed and dried out. Naruto however was thrown off his feet and down to the ground when Tsunade was punched and sent flying into his direction as a result of Yondaime dealing and taking out his Kage Bushin. The young blonde saw that Tsunade was no longer in her green robe and that she had sustained a series of bruises and slashes from being triple-teamed by Dan, Nawake, and Yondaime. "Kaa-chan," Naruto said very worried as he pulled Tsunade over him protectively, "Kaa-chan, answer me. Are you alright?" Naruto's words met no reply. A moment later, Naruto saw that tree branches were starting to grow from out of the ground. With widened eyes, Naruto gulped upon realizing what that jutsu was. "This is bad," Naruto acknowledged, "the Hihutsu, secret jutsu, of my great-grandfather." Naruto bit down hard on his thumb until it bled. "Mokuton Hihutsu, secret tree element technique," Shodei said as he focused his chakra with his hands clasped together, causing the trees and branches to grow faster and stronger at a rapid rate. "Jukai Koten, birth of the trees." Carrying Tsunade bridal style, Naruto held her protectively as the trees grew all around from under him, with many of the large branches growing through the earth wall he made earlier. The blonde surfed around the branches trying to evade the tentacle-like branches trying to grab both him and Tsunade. Shodei gave a battle cry as he amplified his jutsu. Soon many of those branches were coming at them and Naruto resorted to using his speed to escape the branches. But in an encased environment, one can only get so far as he and Tsunade were eventually captured and bounded with tree branches. "Chakra was converted into a source of life," said the same Umbu in the pale white cloak, "truly amazing. This must be the tree element technique of Shodaime-sama, the man who ended the era of wars and created Konoha. It's truly amazing." Orochimaru stepped over to where Naruto and Tsunade were being held high in the trees. The four resurrected shinobis stood next to Snake Sunin as they looked up at their captured fighters. "I have you both trapped now," Orochimaru smiled sinisterly, which was returned with a venomous snarl from Naruto. Back in Konoha, the invading forces were being handled with brutal efficiency. Sandaime, Inma, and Jiraiya took care of all the enemy ninjas on their sides before hurrying to regroup and help the others back in the village. Upon arriving, both the Hokage and Toadsunin saw that their ninjas and the Suna ninjas who sided with them besides Gaara and his team had the situation under control. The three of them soon met up with Kakashi and the other Jounins and Genins after they had regrouped together. "What's the current situation?" Sandaime asked. "We managed to rid the village of most of the invading forces," Asuma answered, "and the few that remain are being dealt with as we speak." Sandaime nodded. "We were also helped by a summoned female fox like Kunoichi who provided us with backup." Lee spoke up. She said she was sent from Naruto-kun and left after she did what she came to do. "Another fox like Kunoichi came and helped Irika and I as well," Anko added in, "like the one this Kaki mentioned, she was also sent by Naruto. She left also after her work here was done." "A summoning contract with foxes," Asuma said in surprise, "I never heard of such a contract." How did Naruto acquire it? Never mind that for now, Jiraiya interjected. Where's Tsunade-hime and Naruto now? Tsunade-sama was taken by Orochimaru, Kakashi spoke up. Naruto went in pursuit of him after he effortlessly wiped out most of the ninjas in the stadium. In which direction did he go? Sandaime asked with absolute seriousness in his tone. He headed east some time ago, Anko replied, but we have no idea how far they went. So Naruto went to take on Orochimaru on his own, Sandaime said. Jiraiya and I will hurry and try to get to him and Tsunade as fast as possible. But what about us? Ino interjected, can't we come and dash? You can do what you can here, Sandaime retorted seriously. Orochimaru is a Sannin and none of you here except Jiraiya and myself can handle him. Then why was Naruto allowed to go after him in the first place? Kiba asked angrily though worry was in his voice. Why didn't Kakashi-sensei and the other Jounins stop him from chasing after Orochimaru if that's the case? Sasuke was about to add his 2 cents into the argument when. Because Naruto is the only person of your age group who can go toe-on-toe with Sarutobi-sensei and us Sunnins on even grounds, Jiraiya admitted, seeing no point in hiding the truth anymore. He's the youngest cage-level shinobi of this village. Hearing those words didn't sit well with Sasuke one bit and once again the curse seal started acting up. Sasuke held his neck in pain as he struggled to control the seal's influence. Kakashi took note of this and prepared to deal with Sasuke should he get out of hand. The other genins and jounins except Anko and Kakashi were stupefied on learning this revelation about Naruto. Before more questions could be asked. Listen, Sandaime said, recapturing everyone's attention, everything will be explained in more details later. Right now, I want you genins here to stay and help where you can. Kakashi, Anko, gather the available jounins and back ops and have them meet up with Jiraiya and myself. We'll be going after Orochimaru and retrieve Tsunade and Naruto. Understood. Hi Sandaime-sama, Kakashi and Anko said in unison as they went and did as instructed. While Sandaime was giving additional orders to the genins, Jiraiya thought back to the picture frame that cracked in his hands earlier in his apartment. Somehow, Jiraiya thought as he looked into the direction Orochimaru took Tsunade before Naruto went in pursuit of them, I have bad feeling that our victory will not come without sacrifice. Chapter 33, Yondaime Hokage Level Battle. Meanwhile in Konoha, Kakashi and Anko had rallied all of the available jounins and together. They were up and ready to go and help bring back Tsunade and Naruto. Alright, Kakashi said, what we need now is a tracker. The other ninjas nodded before the Cyclops shinobi went through a series of hand signs after making a small cut on his finger. Kuki-yos no jutsu, Kakashi said as he slammed his hand to the ground. After the smoke cleared, a small petite pug was in a blue vest and Konoha headband around his head was seen. It's been a while Kakashi, the dog greeted, how has things been since we last spoke? Pakun, Kakashi retorted, we don't have to reminisce on the past. We're in need of your service. And that would be, Pakun asked. We need you to trace and track down Naruto and Tsunade as we follow along with you, Kakashi explained. Pakun nodded before he took a couple of sniffs of the air. Taking a couple of steps the dog stopped. This scent, Pakun said, causing the ninjas around him to tense in attention as he sniffed the air again, I don't believe it. I should have noticed this when I arrived here. What is it? Kakashi inquired as he and everyone waited for what Pakun was about to say next. You, the summoned dog said as he turned to Sakura and continued, use the same shampoo as me. Sakura completely lost the color in her face as her mouth dropped open from the sheer shock of what she just learned. The scent is floral green, Pakun elaborated as he sniffed the air for the 3rd time with a smile, I'm sure of it. Chuji, Shikamaru, and Kiba especially fell to their knees holding their sides while laughing their asses off. Lee, Hinata, Tenten, and Ino had stupefied expressions on their faces while wondering if whether or not Sakura was aware of the kind of shampoo she's been using for God knows how long. Shino had raised eyebrows from hearing what he heard while keeping his thoughts to himself. Sandaime, Jiraiya, the jounins, and present looked as though their faces were about to fall off as they sweat dropped heavily at scene in front of them, aside what Pakun said. Pakun, Kakashi said in annoyance. However my hair is much glossier than hers, Pakun added, causing the three boys to laugh harder as Sakura turned and looked away with a dead look on her seemingly colorless complexion, with her head facing the ground, with a feeling that a black aura was over and around her head. "Pakun," Kakashi said with a bit more stern approach, "this isn't the time to bring up something as irrelevant as that in such a serious situation." "Heh, I'm sorry," Pakun apologized. "I use the same thing as a dog," Sakura mumbled lowly, "same thing as a dog. Same 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 thing as a dog." "Sakura-san," Lee asked very worriedly, "are you okay?" Sakura kept mumbling that same statement as she mindlessly walked off from the scene with the same feeling that a black aura was over and around her head. "I always told her to wear that bag over her head and face while in public," Sai remarked coldly, "perhaps now she'll accept my advice." Kiba again cracked up on hearing that remark, as did Akamaru. "That's enough, Kiba," Shino rebuked, "we have to focus on the tasks at hand." "Pakun," Kakashi said, "Naruto headed east the last time we saw him. Try to pick up on his scent so we can follow along." "Got it," Pakun retorted as he ran off to where Naruto headed off to. Kakashi and the other Jounins, Umbu, along with Jiraiya, Sandaime, and Inma followed along with the dog towards the forest. The other Genins stayed behind to complete the assignments given to them by Sandaime. Sakura returned 7 minutes after being dragged back by Sai, who was following Kakashi's order and bringing her back and get her to perform her share of the tasks given to them by Sandaime. It wasn't until another 15 minutes later when "I'm going," Sasuke stated as he turned and started on his way towards the direction Sandaime and the others went. "Sasuke," Lee interjected, "what are you doing?" "We were given direct orders from Sandaime-sama to dash." "You guys can stay if you like," Sasuke retorted, "but I'm not one to simply believe one's word that Naruto is on par with the Hokage and Sunin's. I'll have to see that for myself to believe it." "Sasuke," Shino spoke, "you along with everyone here saw what Naruto did to those Suna and Otonins back at the stadium. He used a B-rank Jounin level Kinjutsu, an A and S rank Kage level ninjutsu simultaneously. And I saw how he took out Niji with basic planning and B-rank Jounin level jutsus, turning Niji's prized familial jutsu against him. To top it off, he not once actually touched Niji throughout the fight. He beat Niji the same way he beat me," Tenten added, "like how did to Niji, he came up with a plan to turn my jutsu and weapons against me. If anything," Shikamaru jumped in, "Naruto might have plans with each of our names on them to turn our jutsus against us. And after seeing that he can perform Yondaime's powerful jutsus, I'm not one who's willing or crazy enough to challenge that. So get off the idea of figuring whether or not what Jiraiya-sama said is true. It'll just be very troublesome anyway. You guys can do what you will," Sasuke shot back as he continued on his way, "I'm going to see for myself whether Naruto is what they say he is, or something less than their proclamation." Before the other Genins could say anything to stop him, Sasuke speedily ran off and started making his way to where Sandaime and the others left to help and retrieve Naruto and Tsunade. "What a stubborn ass," Kiba remarked. "His pride won't allow him to accept the fact that there's someone of our age group in this village who's stronger than him," Shino explained. "Should we follow him?" Ino asked questionably. "What choice we have," Shikamaru replied, "he'll probably run into some kind of problem on his own anyway. This is so troublesome." Making up their minds, the Genins left their assigned posts and followed after Sasuke into the forest. Little did they know what they were going to see and hear with their own eyes and ears. Back in the forest, Naruto, still immobilized by the tree branches he was encased in for the most part, was struggling to reach the branch in front of him with his bleeding right thumb. Just as he was about to make contact with the branch, Orochimaru appeared in front of him. "Son of Yondaime," Orochimaru remarked, "Jinhuriki of the Great Kyuubi. The Akatsuki have been most interested with what's inside you." "Shut up," Naruto spat, "I don't give a horse's ass what they want." "The feeling's mutual," Orochimaru retorted, "which is why I'll personally kill you in front of your so loving mother." Orochimaru pressed his hands into his stomach and opened his mouth wide before a dark green snake rose from out of his throat and mouth. The snake opened its mouth and released the sword from out of its mouth before Orochimaru grabbed the sword and swallowed the snake back into his body. The snake Sunin was now holding the sword of Kusanagi. "The sword of Kusanagi," Naruto spoke. So you've heard about this sword, Orochimaru remarked. I learned some things from Jisan, Naruto retorted. Not that it matters, Orochimaru shot back as he prepared to use his sword. Tsunade, seeing what was about to transpire in front of her while encased in strong tree branches herself, felt her eyes narrow. Orochimaru had already insulted and perverted the memories of her fallen loved ones when he used his kinjutsu to summon them to life for the sole purpose of fighting both her and Naruto. And now Orochimaru was about to kill her son in front of her. Before Orochimaru could say or do anything else, he sensed a mighty bloodlust aimed directly at him. That was when he heard the sounds of breaking branches. He turned to see Tsunade fists glowing with chakra coming flying right into his face, sending the unsuspecting Sunin flying through several branches before falling to the ground. She turned in time to see her grandfather and granduncle climbing and jumping from branch to branch with Nawaki and Dan following close by. Grandfather, granduncle, Nawaki Otauto, Dan, please forgive me, Tsunade said in her heart before punching her granduncle fiercely down through the branches before her grandfather jumped into the air and attempted to land a flying kick to her head. Tsunade however blocked it before grabbing his leg and pulling him over to her before she collided her left fist with his face, sending him flying backwards through the branches before smashing into the mud wall. Dan and Nawaki tried to double-team her, but she somersaulted and brought her feet into their faces, causing them to soar upwards into the air and plunging through tree branches and getting tangled in a few of them. That's the Kaa-chan I know and love, Naruto cheered as Tsunade punched through the branches and freed her son from his capture. Both Naruto and Tsunade landed down on one of the nearby branches together while Orochimaru pulled himself together. In the meantime, Tsunade took the opportunity to heal both herself and Naruto of their injuries. Are you alright Naru-chan? Tsunade asked worriedly. Never better Kaa-chan, Naruto assured seeing that all of the injuries he sustained were all healed up, as were Tsunade's as well. I'm sorry, Tsunade apologized sincerely. It's not your fault Kaa-chan, Naruto consoled, we'll make that bastard pay for what he's done to our family's name and image. Now let's raise the stakes, shall we? Being one to never refuse a gamble, Tsunade nodded as she bit down on her thumb before both her and Naruto jumped away, forming some distance from each other. Seeing what they were doing, Orochimaru bit down on his thumb as well and drop the barrier, Orochimaru ordered to the Sound 4. They complied and deactivated their jutsu. Tsunade, Naruto, and Orochimaru started doing hand seals in pace with each other and Kuki Yos no Jutsu, the three of them said simultaneously after slamming their bleeding thumbs to the ground. In a second the area exploded with white smoke covering a large section of the fields. The Sound 4 and the three Umbu got out of the way as Naruto, Tsunade, and Orochimaru rose high into the air, each on top of their respective summoned beasts. When the smoke cleared, everyone on the surface came to see what was before them. Tsunade was on top of the head of a giant white slug, Katsuya, Orochimaru, along with Nawaki, Dan, Shodai, and Naidame, were on the head of a giant purple snake, Manda, and Naruto on the head of a giant brownish-red toad, Gamabunta. All three cage-level shinobi warriors stood where they were as they were waiting for one of them to start the fight as a gust of wind started blowing past them. When the Umbu saw Naruto on top of Gamabunta's head in the clothes and white trench coat he was wearing, they couldn't help but look at him as though he was the Yondaime Hokage himself in all his glory. Amazing, said the Umbu as the pale white cloak as he and his two fellow Umbu looked on at the sight before them. What a high-level fight. Is this what a Sunin Hokage level battle is like? Gaki, Gamabunta said as he took a puff from his pipe, I'm amazed that you managed to summon me on your first try. Why have you summoned me here? You know you still owe me that drink. And you'll get it, Naruto retorted as he pulled out the small bottle from inside his pants pocket. I kept a small bottle of sake in my pocket in the event I summoned you. I thought you said you were too young to drink, Gamabunta replied. Forget what I said earlier, Naruto scoffed. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink. Naruto opened the bottle and took a sip of sake before pouring the rest of it onto Gamabunta's lip before the giant toad licked it with its tongue. I like you Gaki, Gamabunta laughed, you truly have spunk. Orochimaru, Manda spoke with an annoyed tone, why did you summon me here for one of your ridiculous fights? Those two have proven to be more of a problem for me than I anticipated, Orochimaru answered, I want them in pieces. And in peace they'll be in, Manda retorted with a smirk. Gamabunta grinned as he pulled out his tanto, I've been meaning to get a snake wallet for some time now. Manda sneered, Orochimaru, I'm going to require 100 of sacrifices for this. This is the end of you, Orochimaru, Tsunade yelled, we aren't fighting as teammates and I won't hold back against you for what you have done. Orochimaru grinned, I wouldn't expect anything less. There was a standoff among the three of them as the wind continued blowing through the region. After what felt like an eternity, Katsuyu took the initiative to begin the battle as she dashed over to the snake and released a huge stream of acid from her mouth towards the snake. However, Manda managed to evade the attack as the acid splashed upon some of the trees and grass, dissolving them on contact. The large snake rushed over to the slug with hard-hitting speed. Manda constricted itself around the slug tightly, trying to crush the life out of her. Gamabunta thrust forward with his weapon, attempting to stab the snake, only to have his tanto grabbed by the giant with its mouth. Gamabunta flipped away several times before the snake threw the weapon back at him, narrowly missing the toad by so much as the massive blade plunged into the ground in front of the toad. Meanwhile, Katsuyu suddenly burst and separated into hundreds of other, smaller slugs and reformed herself out of Manda's death grip. As Katsuyu reformed herself, Orochimaru realized Tsunade wasn't on her head. The snake Sunin barely turned around in time to see Tsunade's form as she hurried up Manda's back, heading straight towards him with her fists glowing with chakra. Shodai and the three resurrected ninjas saw this and raced at her. Tsunade punched her grandfather and granduncle fiercely out of the way as she continued on her way. Dan and Nawaka tried to subdue the slug princess, but she punched them aside as well before reaching her target. Orochimaru dipped under her fists that came with a fury, then he used his hidden snake technique to wrap her fist with his snakes. He flipped her over his shoulder, sending her clear off Manda's head. He did not, however, expect her to grab his collar and pull him down with her, sending both spiraling down to the forest floor. Once on the ground, Tsunade and Orochimaru engaged in heated combat as they exchanged fists and kicks in midair. Each block and impact hurt both of them. He evaded some of her punches that either destroyed or uprooted trees or made large craters in the ground around him. Summoning his sword, Orochimaru used it to slash Tsunade across her chest, causing a ray of blood to splash out of her. He then charged and stabbed Tsunade deep in her stomach and right through her, forcing her cry out from the pain as she backed away from him while holding onto her bleeding wounds. Standing behind her, he then spat out his long lavender tongue, wrapping the appendage around her neck tightly, trying to choke the life out of her while she was unable to heal her deep wounds since she was too busy trying to pry his tongue from off her neck. You are supposed to be invincible in a battle, Yondaime, but what would happen if squashed your throat? Orochimaru asked in slightly slurred words. Tsunade coughed blood from out of her mouth before being stabbed again, this time through her back, which went through her chest as blood splattered from out her back again. The slug princess screamed in pain again and coughed out more blood before she managed to finally pull his tongue off his neck. Grabbing his tongue, Tsunade pulled Orochimaru over to her and sent a bone-crushing punch to his face. While still holding his tongue, she pulled him back towards her as she yelled and delivered a brute kick to his face, sending him bouncing and skidding several times off the ground away from her before coming to a dead stop after crashing into a large tree. A few moments later, Orochimaru got up off the ground before snapping his jaw and several other bones back in place. Orochimaru hissed as he retracted his tongue as he then turned his gaze back to the female Sunin, but his eyes widened as Tsunade closed her eyes and formed a seal and said, Infun, Kai, Shadow Seal, Release, Sozo Saisei, Creation Rebirth, ... As she was glow with a red aura after the diamond seal on her head activated and grew around her forehead and face, Tsunade pulled the Kusanagi sword out from behind her back as she gave a death glare at Orochimaru, her wounds healing almost instantly. There was one drawback to this S-rank medic kinjutsu, however: using it speeds up cell division, and shortens the user's lifespan, which is why she doesn't use it unless she was in grave danger. All the while, the Umbu were doing what they could in dealing with the Sound 4. The fact that they were Orochimaru's elite bodyguards gave the three Umbu a most difficult time dealing with them as a group. While this went on, the three summoned beasts also did combat, Gamabunta and Katsuya against Manda. The giant purple snake managed to land several bites and wounds on the other summons, though himself sustained injuries from Gamabunta's attacks and several acid burns from Katsuya. Naruto was presently taking on the two Hokage brothers, the Jounin and Genin, at the same time. Many forms of jutsus were exchanged between the five of them as they warred for supremacy. The battle was intense and fierce, and not one of them looked ready or willing to surrender to the other. Moku Bushin no Jutsu, wood clone technique. Shodei said before he created 6 wood clones of himself that grew from out of his body as wood at first before breaking off from him and forming into separate fighters next to him. Mizu Bushin no Jutsu, water clone technique. Yondaime said before he spat water out of his mouth and created 6 water clones of himself. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Dan, and Noaka said at the same time before they each created 3 solid clones of themselves. Naruto saw that he was up against 8 clones and 4 originals, making an even of 22 ninjas he had to fight. All of them took out kunais and held them in their hands. If it's a clone war you guys want, Naruto stated, then I'll give you a clone war. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. And with that, 21 solid clones of Naruto puffed into existence, holding kunais in their hands like the real Naruto was. Go! The real Naruto ordered as he and his 21 clones gave loud battle cries while charging at the opposing clones and their makers who likewise gave loud battle cries and charged at Naruto and his clones with their clones, thus engaging in another heated battle, be it on the ground or in the nearby trees. Clashing of kunais went unceasingly as they all warred. The Naruto clones had no problems holding their grounds against the Dan and Noaka clones, but against the Shodei and Yondaime clones, that was another story. Many parts of the landscape and trees were casualties of their battle. When the Yondaime clones burst into water, some of the water splashed upon some of the Naruto clones in other parts of the ground. Using this to his advantage, the real Dan performed a series of hand seals before his hands charged with high voltage of electricity. Raiten, Raikenpo Shajiki no Jutsu, Dan called on it. He stretched out his hands and sent voltage of highly changed electricity through the wet ground and over to 7 Naruto clones that were drenched with water. This in effect electrocuted and puffed them out of existence. That was unexpected, the real Naruto retorted after seeing 7 of his clones destroyed. He was surprised to see that Dan had the affinity for lightning, like Kakashi. Expect anything at this point, Yondaime advised as he watched Naruto continue his battle. During his battle with them, Naruto used Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu and Katon, Karyu and Dan to burn the wood clones and raise Non to destroy the few remaining water and shadow clones. When that was over and done, the blonde had his Kage Bushins puff out before he resorted to using stronger and higher level exploding clones, hoping that would stop Shodei and the other 3 once and for all. The clones, true to their nature, battled with the 4 summoned ninjas and blew up violently on them, blowing them to many pieces. Naruto however received a shock when he saw all 4 of them reforming their blown off limbs and restoring themselves. What the hell, Naruto thought while catching his breath after jumping back on Gamabunte's head, they don't know when to stop. They just keep on coming. This fight will continue if something isn't done, Naruto, Yondaime acknowledged. Can't I use Jutsu Sho to neutralize and cancel out the Edo Tensei, Naruto thought. I'm afraid that's not possible, Yondaime replied, as we heard earlier, Edo Tensei is an S-rank Kinjutsu Kukiyos. However, Jutsu Sho might have been possible if we were aware of the jutsu Orochimaru was using, preventing him from using that jutsu before the caskets had any chance of fully rising to the surface. Because this S-rank Kinjutsu was activated, it'll require another jutsu of equal if not greater power to defeat it. Oftentimes, Naruto thought, the stronger the jutsu, the greater the price paid. You don't get something for nothing, Naruto, Yondaime retorted, it's the sad reality of this life. Naruto broke out of his thoughts when he saw a figure being sent flying into the air and then landing and skidding off the ground into Manda's direction after receiving a mighty punch. The blonde saw that the figure was Orochimaru. Naruto then saw Orochimaru jump back on top of Manda's head with his sword still in his hand. Before Naruto could wonder what happened earlier, an angry Tsunade came charging into the opening while looking for the sadistic renegade Sunin. Seeing Gamabunte's Tonto, she ran and hurriedly climbed her way on top of it as Katsuya made her way to Tsunade. Naruto took note of the seal that Tsunade activated on her head after seeing the amount of blood she was covered in, most likely her own. He realized seeing that Orochimaru wasn't bleeding from any stab wounds. Yondaime gave Naruto a suggestion and the young shinobi decided to follow along with it. Gamabunta, Naruto called out, how about some oil, heh? I got it covered, Gamabunta assured as he took a deep breath while holding his stomach as though he was pressing into it. Katon, Gameu Dan, fire release, toad oil flame bullet, Naruto said before using Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu to ignite the huge amount of oil Gamabunta spats out from his mouth and straight into Manda himself. The attack burned the beast, or so it seemed, as what they saw remaining was crumbling melted skin. He shed his skin, Naruto acknowledged. Where did he go? Gamabunta asked before an earthquake of some sort occurred. He went underground, Naruto yelled. What? Gamabunta replied right before a tail burst from the ground and into his face, trying to strike him. The toad grabbed the tail and struggled against it. However, Manda himself burst forth from the ground from behind and made an attempt to bite both Naruto and the giant toad with his large venomous fangs. Tsunade, however, hurled down from high in the air with Gamabunta's tontos in her hands, slamming the massive blade of the weapon on top and through of Manda's mouth, deeply nailing him firmly into the ground. Keep your mouth shut, Tsunade yelled as she landed down on top of the tonto. Smooth moves, Kaa-chan, Naruto cheered with a thumbs up to her. Tsunade grinned and nodded in return. From a distance, Pakun, Sandaime, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Anko, Shizune, Ibiki, and the other Jounins and Umbu Black Ops with them saw smoke ascending way ahead of them, tracking the loud sounds of explosions, tremors and other noises coming from the direction they were heading towards. We're definitely on the right track, Pakun noted audibly. An intense fight must be taking place down there, Kakashi noted. Tsunade and Naruto will definitely need backup, Sandaime said. Let's go. Sandaime and the other ninjas with him hurried over to where the battle was taking place. In another part of the forest, Sasuke stopped momentarily after hearing a low tremor. That must be where Naruto and the others are, Sasuke acknowledged. Sasuke-kun, Sakura called out as she and the other genins hurried over to him. Sasuke turned to see his fellow genins making their way over to him. So they decided to follow after me, Sasuke thought. I don't have time to wait for them. They better keep up. Turning forward, Sasuke jumped to the next branch and to another and so forth. Damn, Kiba swore, what's his freaking hurry? Never mind that, Sakura shot back, we have to get to him before trouble happens. When you said him, Sakura, Choji asked, do you mean Naruto or Sasuke? What's it matter at this point? Shikamura retorted, we're all going to be facing trouble when we get there anyway. So let's just hurry. Ino and Hinata didn't say anything as they focused on getting to Naruto on time with the others following along. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Tsunade jumped off the tonto and landed down on the ground gracefully on her feet. I grow tired of this, Manda said with the blade still plunged deeply down onto his mouth and into the ground. I'd like to devour all of you bothersome ninjas, but this damn weapon has my mouth shut tightly. I'm out of here. And with that, Manda vanished in a large puff of white smoke, leaving Orochimaru, his summoned ninjas and Sound 4 on their own. Katsuya and I would like to stay and help both you and Tsunade see this fight through, Gaki, Gamabunta said, but we've reached our limits as well. So we'll be taking our leave now. Good luck to the both of you. Thanks for your help, Gamabunta, Naruto replied as he jumped off the toad's head and headed over to Tsunade before standing next to her. Please take care of yourself, Tsunade-sama, Naruto-sama, Katsuya said. I hope everything works out in both your favors. Tsunade and Naruto nodded before both summoned beasts left the scene as well in large puffs of smoke. A moment later, Naruto heard his mother wheezing while feeling a lot of pain all over her body as she was having trouble standing upright. He saw that the side effect of her Sozo Saisei was taking effect as she was now weakening. The diamond-shaped seal returned back to normal after its deactivation. I enjoyed the time we spent together, Orochimaru said to Tsunade and Naruto, but I'm afraid I'll have to end this now. Naruto sensed other ninjas from Konoha coming their way. But he also knew that more bloodshed would unquestionably occur with them battling the two resurrected Hokages and Orochimaru at the same time, and his mother didn't have enough strength to fight anymore. Though he didn't want to come out and say it, but he knew she'd be a liability to him and he couldn't chance that. And to add to Naruto's problems was that he used up most of his chakra and only had a portion left. Set up the barrier again, Orochimaru ordered to the Sound 4 after they got the three Umbu off their backs. They did as instructed and hurriedly prepared to make the barrier. This time the barrier was going to be only 45 yards in length. Seeing what was going to happen, Naruto came to a decision. Kaa-chan, Naruto said with his eyes closed while controlling his emotions, I hope you'll someday find it in your heart to forgive me. Tsunade turned to look at Naruto with a perplexed expression before he grabbed and threw her far from him and high into the air seconds before the barrier activated, locking her outside the dome and leaving Naruto to face and fight Orochimaru and the 4 resurrected ninjas alone. Some distance away. "What the?" Jiraiya said when he saw Tsunade coming and falling towards them from the air. Before she was about land down onto the ground on her back, Jiraiya hurriedly jumped in and caught her bridle style. The Toad Sunin landed down on the ground as Sandaime and the other ninjas met up with them. From what they saw, Tsunade's clothes were torn in a few places and covered in blood, though they found no injuries on her body. They figured that she must have healed herself. "Where's Naruto?" Jiraiya asked. That's when Tsunade's mind snapped back as she got out from Jiraiya's arms. "Naruto!" Tsunade yelled urgently as she tried to run back to where Naruto had thrown her from. But she was cut short when she fell to her knees and hand when holding her chest with her free hand. Jiraiya ran up to her and helped her up, seeing that she was clearly weakened. "Damn it," Tsunade said weakly, "Naruto, he threw me away from him, and..." "And what?" Sandaime asked worriedly. "He's fighting Orochimaru and..." Tsunade coughed painfully, still feeling the side effects from her Sozo Saisei taking effect. "Tsunade-hime," Jiraiya addressed her, "you're in no condition to fight. Whatever the situation is, we'll take it from here and help Naruto." With that, Jiraiya helped Tsunade stay on her feet as they, Sandaime and the others made their way to where Naruto was. When they arrived at the scene, not only did the Konoha shinobis see a heavily devastated region, but they saw a shocking sight of Naruto getting ready to take on Orochimaru and his 4 summoned ninjas alone. Sandaime's eyes widened from shock and sheer horror when he saw Shodai and Nidaime with Orochimaru, along with Dan and Noeke. "He used that forbidden jutsu to summon them of all people," Sandaime remarked in disbelief. The 3 Umbu from earlier regrouped with them, and from what the others saw, they had sustained a number of injuries, though they were alright. The 3 Umbu warned the group not to touch the barrier so they don't burn to death as they turned their attention to what was going on inside the dome. Back inside the dome. "Naruto," Orochimaru mocked, "you're either a brave soul or a fool to believe that you have a chance in surviving this fight on your own, especially since you're weakened and low on chakra. Now your mother and everyone here can eyewitness your demise by the hands of your own ancestors. It'll be quite something to record in Konoha's history archive, don't you think?" Naruto took a breath and spoke, "What you've done to my family today is a crime I can never and will never forgive. You brought back my dead ancestors for your sick and twisted intentions of seeing my mother suffer from psychological breakdown. You've brought great dishonor and shame upon my family's name. And you've insulted my ancestors' legacies and what they gave their lives for." A touching speech, Orochimaru mocked in sarcasm, "but I'm not at all moved by it. I'll get back the honor and dignity you robbed from my family," Naruto declared, "and correct Jisan's mistake when he spared your life." "A lot of talk from someone who's outnumbered, outmatched and outpowered," Orochimaru taunted while aiming and posing his swords at the blonde. "You don't have a fighting chance at this point. I win." Chapter 34, Spirit of the Hokage. Shizune couldn't believe what she was seeing with her own eyes. There in front of her was her uncle, standing with Noeke, Shodai, and Nidaime. But the heart-wrenching part was the reality that her uncle was brought back to life for the intent of hurting and killing both Tsunade and Naruto, the boy she loved, helped raise, train, educate and looked at as her hero Tauto. The young female Jounin futilely tried to hold back the tears that were coming down her face, feeling pain for herself, Naruto and Tsunade, who was in love with her uncle years ago. She could only imagine how heartbroken Tsunade must be at seeing such a horrific sight that the man she once loved was being used to hurt her son. It hurt Shizune to see that her uncle, who was part of the reason why Tsunade decided to become Godame, was turned into a puppet to be used by one of Konoha's worst traitors. "Danjisen," Shizune cried out to her uncle as ran to the barrier only to be grabbed and pulled back by Kakashi. "Stop this. Please, Danjisen." "It's no use," Tsunade said with a saddened voice, "he won't listen to you. He and the others are completely under Orochimaru's control." "Is there nothing we can do to break this control?" Shizune asked desperately. Meanwhile, Naruto held onto his chest while breathing in and out. He knew that in his present circumstances, he was a sitting duck and Kyuubi's chakra was completely neutralized by Shodai. Whether or not removing the necklace from his neck would have helped the blonde didn't know, but he still kept it around his neck anyway. Though he tried not to show it earlier, he was internally injured from Shodai and Nidaime's last attacks and he didn't have time to use his medic knowledge to heal himself. Unfortunately for him, This was made clear when he coughed up some blood from his mouth while falling to one knee and hand while holding his chest with his free hand. He spat the blood from out of his mouth and onto the grass. "Naruto," Tsunade cried, wanting to run and protect him, only to be held back by Jiraiya. "Tsunade," Jiraiya tried to reason. "What are you all doing?" Tsunade yelled angrily. "Don't just stand there. Break this barrier and get my son back." "That's an order." Anko was to take action to get Naruto back when. "It'll be of no use, Tsunade-sama," the Umbu in pale white said. "The three of us tried that earlier after both you and Naruto-sama were captured by Shodame-sama. Even our strongest jutsus combined couldn't make a dent in it." Anko snarled inwardly. Though she didn't say it out loud, however, she really didn't want anything to happen to Naruto. Orochimaru had already taken almost everything away from her and she didn't want to lose Naruto to him either. The snake Jounin maintained a calm and composed bearing, not wanting emotions to cloud her judgment and reasoning. Sandaime lowered his head momentarily. Though he didn't say it out loud, but the fact that Naruto was holding his own against not one but two Hokages surprised him. With a heavy heart, Sandaime raised his head to the snake Sunin. "Orochimaru," Sandaime offered, "release the boy, and take me in his place." Everyone around Sandaime looked at him wondering what he was doing. "Sarutobi," Inma asked, "what are you doing?" "Orochimaru is my former student," Sandaime said with shame laced in his voice. "As his former sensei, I saw the path he was walking and the ambition he always had in his eyes, but I chose to act like I didn't notice. During our younger days, I saw him as a rare prodigy with great potential and our village was at war then. My blind optimism led to all this. His crimes and atrocities are also my fault. It shames and disgraces me greatly to say that he was once my favored pupil." Everyone there were surprised to hear what was coming out of Sandaime's mouth. Inma however already knew the story, so he wasn't at all surprised. Jiraiya knew all too well the truth about Orochimaru being favored more so by Sarutobi over Tsunade and himself. "It's only fitting that I exchange myself in Naruto's place," Sandaime said. "Naruto, Tsunade and many others have suffered enough because of the mistakes I've made in the past." "Jisan," Naruto said while still on his hand and knee, "I forgave you a long time ago. I know that you're not the same man back then and you don't want anyone to make the same mistakes you made. However..." Naruto stood back up on his feet though he was still holding his chest as he continued, "What you're offering is something I cannot agree to." "What?" Sandaime exclaimed in shock as Naruto went on, "I consciously made this choice to lock myself in this dome before throwing Kaachan out of it. And I never start something I don't intend to see to the finish." "Naruto," Sandaime said sternly with no form of humor in his voice and demeanor, "as your Hokage I'm giving you an order to stand down and allow me to take your place. You're in no condition to fight anymore." "You surprise me, Jisan," Naruto retorted. "I never thought that you of all people would underestimate me." "Naruto," Jiraiya jumped in, "this isn't a matter of misjudging your abilities nor is this the time for you to be as hard-headed and stubborn as your father was." Naruto was very well aware of Yondaime's hard-headed demeanor since Jiraiya told him many stories about Minato when he was his genin student. The blonde chuckled, "It's true what they say then, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree." "Na, Naruto," Tsunade coughed, "please, you've done enough as it is. Isn't this a remarkable sight?" Orochimaru taunted. "Here it is that three of Konoha's strongest shinobis are pleading, better yet, begging me to spare you. I can't recall the last time I've seen such an amazing sight." "It doesn't matter what you think, Orochimaru," Naruto replied sourly, "no matter what, you'll be dead by sunset." Orochimaru snorted before gesturing to Dan to go after the blonde. Doing as ordered while Naruto was weakened, Dan readied his kunao and charged at Naruto. "Danjisan," Shizun cried loudly, "please stop." Her words fell on deaf ears as Dan continued his charge at Naruto. A few moments later, a figure burst forth from the ground and delivered a strong right hook into Dan's jaw, sending the Jounin rocketing into the air before falling backwards to the ground on his back. The 14-year-old Kunoichi who emerged from the hole landed down to the surface in front of Naruto with her back facing him. "Perhaps I can be of some help to you," the Kunoichi offered as she looked at the blonde. Orochimaru recognized the teenage Jounin since he's heard about her exploits. But he also noticed that she was fully geared in Konoha's standard Jounin uniform and gear and wearing the Konoha headband around her head. The Konoha Jounins however didn't recognize her as one of their own. Ryota, Orochimaru grinned, Iwagaku's shining stone, or formerly one, seeing that you now chose to become a missing nin. So you've heard of me, Ryota said. I guess my reputation precedes me. The Konoha nins were shocked to say the least when they saw a missing ninjounin from IWA seeking to help Naruto. But what shocked them were the facts that she so boldly wore their shinobi uniform and that she somehow penetrated the barrier. That girl, Jiraiya said, she's the one Naruto told Kakashi and I about. So she's infamous, Ryota, Kakashi said. Interesting how in spite of our village's hatred towards each other that she's here to help. I wonder if she's doing this for something that she hopes is in it for her. Though finding her appearance is perhaps a blessing in disguise, however, Naruto interrogated, what are you doing here and why are you geared in Jounin uniform and gear belonging to Konoha? Isn't it obvious? Ryota retorted, I'm here to help you end this bastard's life. Plus, I had these clothes for some time after I secretly broke into your village's supply unit. You destroyed my original uniform and gear with that jutsu of yours in our last encounter and you left me pitifully near naked in the forest of death. The Jounins were caught off guard by this, especially the females. An eye for an eye, Naruto retorted, you did me in first when you used a jutsu of your own to destroy my original clothes and gear, leaving me almost naked before attacking me. I was forced to resort to using tiger skin loincloths before I returned the favor. Touché, Ryota remarked. Well, that's past history now, Naruto-kun. Though the conversation momentarily baffled those listening to it as it served to explain why Naruto was in loincloths during the preliminaries, however, the honorific Ryota addressed Naruto with didn't go unnoticed. But what surprised Naruto was the fact that kun used with his name didn't carry any form of malice and mockery in it as she used to say it before. What went through Sandaime's mind after hearing what Ryota said was how their security would be under much scrutiny again. Tell me, girl, Orochimaru asked curiously, how did you manage to penetrate the barrier from underneath since this dome goes underground also? I didn't, Ryota admitted, I managed to tunnel under the ground over to Naruto-kun before the barrier was set up. Turned to Naruto, I'd have been here sooner, but I ran into some trouble on the way here after coming from the stadium. Nice fight with that Niji boy by the way, and that Hirei Shinjutsu of yours really kicked ass. I'm happy I wasn't on the receiving end of it. Naruto said nothing, though he was surprised to learn that Ryota was among the crowd of spectators. It matters not to me, Orochimaru said, either way, you both are going to die here today. Though she was a skilled ninja, however, Naruto knew that Ryota wouldn't have a chance against them and his mind was already made up as to what he was about to do. Ryota, Naruto spoke seriously, you should know that by your actions you've Naruto-kun, Ryota cut him off while keeping her emotions in check. Regardless of our bitter past, I knew what I was getting myself into when I chose to side with you on this day. And as you warned me before, should I return to IWA, my safety isn't guaranteed, especially after my second and worst defeat to you. So you chose to defect from IWA to Konoha, Naruto asked cautiously, what about your Tsuchikage and fellow IWA nins? Won't they come searching for you? To be truly honest with you, Ryota admitted reluctantly, I have nothing and no one in IWA to go back to. My parents and my entire family are dead, and most of them were killed during the last great shinobi war. If I do return to IWA after my repeated failures, I'll only go back in disgrace and face execution, if not a lifelong imprisonment. Naruto said nothing to the former IWA Jounin until, you still didn't tell me whether or not Iwagaku will send teams of ninjas to retrieve you and me for that matter. Who knows at this point? Ryota answered, as far as I'm concerned, I'm longer of any use to IWA and I don't plan on going back. Naruto said nothing to her. No matter what happens from here on out, Ryota concluded, I'll see this fight with you to the end. Surprising, Orochimaru interjected, I'd have never known you were in such a hurry to die. You seem closer to death than Naruto-kun and I are, Ryota retorted, so save me a front seat. Orochimaru chuckled maniacally as he looked at Naruto and Ryota with an amused look. What's so funny? Naruto inquired. You young generation ninjas truly amuse me, Orochimaru said, it's a pity that you both as strong as you are won't have the capacity to defeat aging. Naruto and Ryota said nothing as they looked on at Orochimaru, who reached for his face and tore it off clean, to the shock of Naruto, Ryota, and everyone there who were watching. What is this? Guy asked as he and the others looked on with horrified expressions on their faces. What's going on? Asked one of the Umbu. Who is that young person? Orochimaru turned, fixing his hair, and looked straight at Sandaime. Who are you? Sandaime yelled. Are you that surprised that you haven't figured it out? The person said with a younger and feminine tone. It's me. I'm Orochimaru. How? Tsunade asked with a puzzled expression. How is this possible? We Sunnins are in our 50s, Jiraiya said. That youth, and what's more, that face isn't the face of the Orochimaru we know. Anko couldn't believe what she was seeing. She found it hard to swallow that this horrible creature in front her was once the man she once loved and looked up to as a father figure. You're not Orochimaru-sensei, Anko said in an undertone, not the one I used to know, that one died many years ago. That one, Inma said, he's finally done it. You can't mean, Sandaime said, you had already achieved the completion of that kinjutsu. The Snake Sunin smiled widely and maniacally as he giggled. I've left Konoha more than 10 years ago, Sarutobi-sensei. A lot has happened during my time away. You terrifying inhuman creature, you, Sandaime spat in complete disgust as Orochimaru just laughed louder and more maniacally with that feminine voice. He's insane, Naruto said in an undertone. One of the reasons why I couldn't choose you to become Yondaime Hokage was because of your corrupt and twisted ideology, Sandaime said as he momentarily recalled what happened when he and his two Umbu discovered his hidden lair of experimentations years ago. He also remembered how he had his shot in stopping Orochimaru once and for all, even when Orochimaru himself waited for Sarutobi to do something against him when Inma told him that was his best chance to kill Orochimaru. Yet, Sandaime's sentiments of being his former sensei clouded his judgment, thus causing him not to kill Orochimaru and instead allow him to escape, a mistake Sandaime heavily regretted ever since. The Immortality Jutsu is a spell where you anchor your spirit to this world forever, Orochimaru explained. In other words, it's a reincarnation spell where you find a new body, enter it with your spirit and take possession of it. How many bodies have you gone through already? Sandaime asked. This is my second one, Orochimaru admitted. The only reason why I disguise myself as my old self is because I thought I'd let you, Jiraiya and Tsunade feel nostalgic about the past. Growing old is pointless and wasteful, that's how I feel when I look at you, sensei. Sandaime said nothing. I will eventually kill you and everyone else, Sarutobi-sensei, Orochimaru said, and I will get for myself a younger and more beautiful body. Sasuke's body, Naruto figured out. I already know your story of you wanting to become this so-called ultimate being that has mastered and learned every jutsu under the sun. And what better way of learning jutsus the easy way than having the Sharingan, am I right? You're smarter than I give you credit for, Naruto, Orochimaru said as he placed his hand over his face and turned his face back to his original appearance. Freak, Ryota called Orochimaru before doing a set of complex series of hand seals. Her body momentarily glowed in mystic chakra. Naruto knew this jutsu since he had the experience of battling against it before. Iwa no Shikara, rock strength, Ryota said as she felt the power and changes coursing through her body. After the glow died out, she charged at Orochimaru only to be intersected by the Hokage brothers with Dan and Nawaka following close by. Clenching her fist, she jumped into the air before flying downwards in the four ninjas' direction. With her fist stretched out, she landed and punched the ground with immense force, sending the four of them flying off their feet in different directions while Orochimaru jumped from the ground before the shock wave reached him as a good portion of the ground cratered and broke open. The Konohanins were taken by surprise from seeing this. So this is Ryota's insane strength-enhancing jutsu Naruto described to us, Kakashi spoke. From the looks of it, Jiraiya spoke up, it's like watching a younger Tsunade. Tsunade couldn't help but see the irony in that statement, especially since she reluctantly had to go up against her revived relatives to save Naruto. Now here it was that an almost total stranger from enemy territory came to do something she herself had a hard time doing while helping Naruto. The Godame couldn't help but feel emotions of regrets and sorrow because of her earlier actions. Taking her fist out of the ground, Ryota stood back up as the other ninjas rose up back off the ground. A Tsunade imitation, Orochimaru mocked, this ought to be interesting. Ryota engaged all but Orochimaru in combat. Though Ryota presently appeared as a Tsunade imitation, she did quite a job in forming craters and destroying trees that Shode were throwing at her. As she kept them busy. Hopefully she'll buy out the amount of time I need, Naruto thought as while healing himself of all of his injuries with his remaining chakra. I better hurry, that jutsu of hers will only last as long as she has the chakra to maintain it. In another part of the forest, Sasuke was speedily racing through the forest but made sure not to collide with Sandaime and the other older ninjas with him. Nearly reaching his destination a while later, he changed routes and headed to another part of the forest so that he'd see the events from that end of the forest. All the while Hinata, Ino, and the other genins made tracks in following Sasuke to where he was going. It wasn't long until they all arrived at their intended destination. When they all got there, all of the genins stood on top of tree branches at a good enough height to see everything in front of them. Needless to say, they were shocked at the amount of chaos and damage that occurred in the opening of the forest before their arrival. Like the older ninjas standing in another part of the forest, they then focused their attention to the dome that had Naruto, Orochimaru, and 5 other ninjas they couldn't identify. The genins saw Naruto standing inside the dome while an unidentified jounin who looked to be 14 years old was engaging 4 other unidentified fighters who were really giving the believed Konoha jounin a hard time, and from what they saw, it was cleared a one-sided fight. What was noteworthy though was that they were all, with the exception of Orochimaru, wearing Konoha headbands. "Who do you suppose are the people fighting against that jounin?" Hinata asked. "I don't know," Kiba answered, "but the 2 in red and blue look strangely familiar." "I know what you mean," Choji agreed, "somehow I can't help but sense that we've seen them from somewhere before." Sasuke didn't bother to join the conversation as he focused on what was transpiring in front of him and the others. Back inside the dome, Naruto was still healing himself while the former Iwa Kunoichi engaged the 4 resurrected shinobis while Orochimaru watched from a distance. His self-healing though was interrupted here and there whenever he had to evade flying debris and rumble that were sent in his direction as a result of the fierce combat happening inside the dome. While healing himself, Naruto took into account and analyzed the present situation and everything that transpired thus far. He knew that S-rank jutsus required a lot of chakra, as did summoning animal bosses. And the fact that Orochimaru was forced to engage Tsunade in combat only added to the amount of chakra he had to use. Naruto's question on that matter was how much chakra did Orochimaru now had left. Though he's a Sannin, however, so was Tsunade, and seeing her condition earlier after she summoned Katsuya, fought with Orochimaru and used her Sozo Saisei, he knew that Orochimaru didn't have much chakra left, and neither did Tsunade. Then there were the 4 Oto Jounins making the barrier to contain them inside. Naruto was aware that the 4 of them were battling the 3 Umbu earlier, and though he only saw bits and pieces of their fight, he knew that the Umbu keep them on their toes and didn't give them an easy time. He figured that the 4 of them used a lot of chakra fighting the Umbu, but seeing that they still managed to form the barrier made him see that they still some chakra left, though he didn't know how long the barrier would last considering they looked to be making an earnest effort to maintain it. And now Sandaime, Jiraiya, and all of the ninjas with them were presently standing right outside the dome. The way things were, one would think that everything was now in Naruto's favor. However, there were several other facts that he couldn't take lightly or ignore. For one thing, Sandaime and Jiraiya were up very earlier in the morning with other ninjas in their divisions battling large armies of Suna and Oto nins, and Naruto saw that Sandaime summoned Inma, the monkey boss. Naruto didn't know how much chakra they and the other ninjas with them had used up already and had left, especially since they had to travel this large distance to get here, but he wasn't willing to take a gamble on it. Finally, there were the 4 revived ninjas, and to Naruto, they were worst. Because of the jutsu used, Naruto knew that they couldn't be defeated that easily. And regardless of how much damage was done to them, they'd just reconfigure back together and still have chakra to fight with. It would be an ongoing fight, and many of his fellow Konoha ninjas would perish by their hands as a result of chakra depletion. Naruto acknowledged that something had to be done to stop the 4 revived ninjas and minimize the chances of casualties, and he especially wanted to stop Orochimaru once and for all, especially for what he had done to his family's name and honor. Turning his attention back to the fight, Naruto looked to see what was now going on. The blonde noticed that while everyone was looking on at the fight taking place, Orochimaru sneakily reached into his pocket and retrieved a small item which he placed into his mouth before chewing and eating it. "Crap," Naruto mumbled mentally, "I didn't take into consideration that Orochimaru would use a soldier pill." Bearing in mind the reputations of the Sunnins, they very rarely use them, if at all in the past. But seeing the current circumstances, I suppose that Orochimaru isn't taking chances. Naruto saw how Orochimaru looked more revived and strengthened than he did just moments ago. I better watch myself carefully, Naruto thought, one bad mistake and it's all over. During Naruto's mental deliberation, Ryota was presently dealing with the youngest of the 4 summoned ninjas. Noeka didn't serve to be that big of a problem to the girl as he was more of a distraction and annoyance. Shodai and Nidaime on the other hand did more than hold their grounds against her as she was being double-teamed. Many of her attacks were either evaded or countered, with only so much of her attack doing real damages. Like Naruto, she had to deal with wood and water clones. Dan and Noeka decided to stand back as they waited for the best time to strike. Damn, Ryota swore in frustration, what will it take to beat you guys? After doing some hand seals, Ryota summoned her boulder-sized spike mace. She swung her mace to get a feel for it before launching it at the Hokages. Shodai however did a hand seal and tree branches grew from out of the ground and grabbed the spike mace tightly. What? Ryota said before her mace was pulled from out of her hands as Shodai did another hand seal, causing sharp branches to shoot from the ground and into the ball, destroying and breaking it to pieces. So much for that idea, the Kunoichi remarked before summoning her rock sword. Noeka now charged at the girl with his kunows in hand. He hacked and slashed at the girl who countered and parried every strike he threw at her. During the distraction, Nidaime signaled to Dan and he nodded. Naruto saw this and he didn't like where this was leading, though he was currently unable to do anything at this point since he wasn't fully healed yet. Nidaime got in position some distances away and did a few complex hand seals before placing his hands together. Suten, Suidoken, water release, water pipe, Nidaime said as he focused eyesight on where Noeka and Ryota were. Noeka threw his kunao directly at Ryota who easily caught it before it could do any harm to her. The resurrected genin flipped and stood away from her. The girl then felt wetness under feet. Before she could ponder on this, water burst from underneath her like a geyser, completely drenching her. Raiten, Raigonpo Shajiki no Jutsu, Dan yelled at lightning came coursing out of his arms and down upon the steel part of the kunao that was in Ryota's hand. Ryota screamed in sheer pain while being thoroughly electrocuted, with the water emerging from under her feet serving to intensity the electrocution. With an explosion, Ryota was then sent flying backwards, before crashing hard and brutally into a nearby boulder several feet from Naruto. The teenage girl sustained several burns, bruises and cuts and parts of her clothes were torn. But other than that, she was still alive. She coughed out some blood from her mouth, which was now trickling down from both ends of her mouth. Nidaime-sama created an underground water channel and directed it in Ryota's direction. Naruto contemplated, Ryota's affinity is clearly earth and all of her jutsus are earth-based. Having both my great-granduncle and Dan-san double-team her like that, she didn't stand a chance, especially since earth affinity and earth jutsus are useless against lightning types, and adding water to the mixture only make things twice as bad. Shit, Ryota coughed while trying painfully to pull herself together. Those two in red and blue armor really put their all into their blows. And those other two with them make things worse. They're Hokages, Naruto told her, Shodame-sama and Nidaime-sama, my great-grandfather and great-granduncle. Ryota looked at Naruto as if he grew another head as she asked with a puzzled look, how can that be? Those two died years ago. I know, Naruto remarked, they're my dead ancestors brought back to life for the sole purpose of fighting and killing me and Kaa-chan. Ryota's eyes widened on hearing that as Naruto continued, the young boy is Noeka-jisan my Kaa-chan's little brother and the man next to him is Dan-san, my Kaa-chan's late fiancé. Like my great-grandfather and great-granduncle, they too died years ago during the Great Shinobi Wars. Back with the Genins. His dead ancestors, Kiba said aloud in perplexity, those two in armor are Shodame-sama and Nidaime-sama? The great Hokages who built Konoha. How's that possible? Sakura asked louder than she should only to have her mouth grabbed and covered by Ino, not so loud for it. You want us to be spotted by the others. I'm guessing that a high-level kinjutsu of some sort was used in bringing back Naruto's ancestors, Shikamaru explained. Naruto couldn't have to fight against Orochimaru and 4 of his ancestors alone, Hinata said almost on the verge of tears at the traumatizing thought to being forced to fight dead family members. Is there nothing we can do? Right now, Sai spoke with a neutral tone, all we can do is watch and see what'll happen. Inside the dome. Impossible, Ryota said in disbelief, how is this possible? Never mind that, Naruto replied as he took a few steps forward, you've done enough and I appreciate that. I'll take it from here. Naruto turned to Orochimaru who licked his lips sinisterly. So you intend to challenge me, Orochimaru shot. Though you gave my family a cruel blow Orochimaru, Naruto stated, that in time will heal. The blow I intend to give you on this day however is one that will never heal. Not ever. Bold words Naruto, Orochimaru said confidently, but from what I saw, you used the last remainder of chakra in healing your wounds and injuries. This won't be much of a fight. You'll die here and there's nothing anyone here can do about it. Saying nothing, Naruto closed his eyes and placed his hands together as he formed a seal of some sort. While standing, he posed himself in a meditative stance, never breaking his focus. What is he doing, was the question on everyone's mind. Orochimaru had an amused look on his face as he watched what he believed was Naruto's last-ditch effort to summon what little chakra he had left in him. His smile however eventually died out when he saw a blue aura appear around Naruto's form and growing stronger every second. The familiarity of the aura radiating from the chakra surrounding Naruto was potent to Orochimaru and the older ninjas looking on. The genins likewise sensed that aura, it was the exact same one they felt when Naruto entered the building to take the preliminaries that day. As they looked on, they all waited to see what was going to happen. Orochimaru snarled when he recognized that aura. Moments later, the chakra grew and shaped around Naruto's body and took the shape and appearance of an all too familiar figure. The older generation recognized that figure anywhere. That chakra, Kurane said in disbelief, it took on the form and appearance of Yondaime, Asuma finished for her, Konoha's yellow flash. How is this possible? What a feat, Guy exclaimed, his passionate youthful flames is strong enough to even radiate with the spirit of our late Yondaime Hokage. Naruto soon opened his eyes again, but the eyes he now had weren't his normal blue eyes. Rather, they were the hard blue eyes of a ninja who's experienced many battles, seen hundreds deaths and slaughtered many enemies who dared challenge him. Those eyes belonged to a man who's been renowned and feared by seemingly countless people and whose name has been made taboo in enemy territory. Though he tried to hide it, but Orochimaru felt fear from within his being. What is he? Ryota thought as she looked on in astonishment, what an incredible power. Minato, Jiraiya thought as he and the other Konoha ninjas looked at the chakra around Naruto. Naruto focused that chakra into himself before the glow around him gradually died out. Great-grandfather, great-granduncle, Nawakage-san, Dan-san, Naruto spoke with a calm and more mature voice, sincerely, please forgive me, I won't hold back from here on out. But this must be done, turned to Orochimaru, and I especially won't hold back from crushing you. Holding back, Orochimaru scoffed at the blonde, you mean to say that you've been holding back against them this entire time? That's a nice bluff Naruto. But it won't do you any dash. The snake Sunin was cut short when a fist was implanted deep into his face, sending him flying off the ground and through several large tree branches before hitting the ground with a thud. Shodai and Nidaime moved in to attack Naruto, however Naruto moved and appeared behind Nidaime and punched him in the back of the head before using Godaime-like strength to kick him into his older brother, sending the both of them off their feet. Not giving them time to regain control, Naruto moved in and somersault and kicked them both from behind, sending them flying away from him and crashing separately into the ground. Dan and Nawaki rushed in to apprehend Naruto, however both of them met the brute end of the blonde's fists, which sent them into a collision course with nearby trees. The sheer speed and strength Naruto used against the five of them stupefied everyone watching to no end. It was so fast, Ryota mentally shouted, I couldn't keep up with it. It's unreal. If Sandaime, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the other Jounins weren't there they wouldn't have believed what they saw with their own eyes that looked like they wanted to pop out of their sockets. Did that just happen? And Kiba yelled with his mouth wide opened, that can't be the same Naruto we went to the academy with. He's schooling two Hokages, a Sunin, a Jounin, and a Genin at the same time. Chuji was lost for words as he dropped his bag of potato chips. Naruto's flames of youth have reached levels far beyond any I've ever seen, Lee commented in amazement with his right fist clenched tightly, it's truly awe-inspiring. His dedication to hard work and perseverance has truly paid off. Truly he's reaping in the fruitage of being a genius of hard work. If that's the real Naruto, Choji added after regaining his ability to speak, then he's been going extremely soft on us during our academy days. Hinata, Sakura, Tenten and Ino looked on at Naruto in a whole new light. That power and speed he wielded with such control was so uncanny yet astounding. It was unlike anything they've ever seen in their entire life. Sasuke looked on with disbelieving eyes. Is this truly the real Naruto? Sasaki contemplated. It can't be real, can it? The ability to take on fighters of Sunin and Hokage level simultaneously, how could Naruto have reached this level before me? What have I been doing all this time? Sasuke then remembered Naruto's words from the past, Yondaime is the Hokage I intend to surpass, in just about everything. How could I have not been able to keep up with him, Sasuke thought as he continued watching the fight in front of him. Meanwhile, kill him, Orochimaru ordered after getting back up off the ground, I want him in 1,000 pieces. Doing as ordered, Shode and Nidaime got back up and rushed at Naruto, who in turn rushed at them, engaging them in what was considered cage-level mortal shinobi combat. Noeki and Dan jumped in to help overpower Naruto. However, the sheer speed and strength Naruto was using against them made this a feat easier said than done as he repeatedly toppled them. Shode went through a series of hand seals before branches burst from the ground and dashed after Naruto. After forming a raise-non in his hand, Naruto charged through the branches as they kept coming unrelentingly. Soon, an arsenal of branches with spikes at the front were formed and sent charging at Naruto with eye-popping speed as the branches surrounded him in all directions. Naruto saw that he was cornered and seconds later the branches plunged through him, only to have him puff out of existence in a white cloud of smoke. Kage Bushin, Anko realized, but when did he? Anko never got to finish when Naruto appeared behind Shode from out of nowhere, giving Shode only enough time to turn around to receive a roundhouse kick to the face, sending him off his feet into the ground. After running through a series of hand seals, Naruto took a deep breath and Katon, Karyuin Dan, Naruto yelled before blasting flames from out of him mouth and over to Shode, completely engulfing him in flames. The blonde cancelled out the jutsu seeing that Shode was momentarily down for the count. Fire burns wood, Naruto commented before turning to his next opponent. Nidaime stepped in and engaged Naruto. After the required hand seals, Nidaime started spitting powerful rapid beams of water at Naruto, each beam tearing through and destroying whatever it came in contact with. The blonde raced around the beams being careful not to touch them seeing how they were cutting through objects like energetic lasers. Running behind boulder with Nidaime's shooting beams following close by, Naruto punched and shattered the boulder, causing its pieces to be sent flying into Nidaime's direction. Sujin Hiki, water release, water wall, Nidaime yelled as he created a large cyclone of water around himself to repel the debris flying at him. His actions were interrupted when a pair of hands speedily came from out of the ground by his feet and grabbed him, pulling him into the ground until the only part of his body that could be seen was his head sticking out of the ground. Earth drinks water, Naruto remarked before punching Nidaime square in the face. Dan and Noeki came charging at Naruto after his popped out from out of the ground. Both of them tried to double-team him as he stylishly parried and evaded all of their assaults as they attacked at the same time. Dan resorted to using his lightning affinity to strike and electrocute Naruto. Forming a ball of chakra in his hand, Naruto changed at Dan and raised non, Naruto yelled as he plunged the attack through the lightning and into Dan's chest. The spiraling ball exploded on the Jounin and sent him flying backwards, quite a distance in fact before coming to a dead stop by crashing into a tree. Noeki raced after Naruto from behind before stabbing him deep in the back with both of his kunaus. What everyone thought was Naruto at that moment proved to be a wooden log that puffed in Naruto's place. Kawarimi, replacement, Tsunade acknowledged just before Naruto appeared in front of Noeki. Not giving the genin time to react, the cage-level blonde-haired shinobi grabbed and threw the genin hard and far away from him, causing him to bounce off and skid across the ground several times only to be stopped by a large rock in his way. The young genin was about to get back up when he saw that a kunao with an exploding note was at his side. He didn't get the time to wonder when Naruto threw it at him before it exploded on him, sending him into a collision course with another large rock. Orochimaru saw that he was left standing with Naruto standing some distance from him. The snake Sunin didn't like the situation one bit. Unbelievable, one of the Umbu commented, looking at the way he fights is like seeing a fusion of Yondaime-sama and Godaime-sama. Insane speed and insane strength, Kakashi added, a most deadly combo. In another part of the forest, the genins were looking on with stupefied expressions on their faces. They saw how Naruto strategically battled with his 4 opponents and effectively took them down. If anything, doing this was no easy task, they acknowledged, but the fact that he actually did it made it even more amazing to them. Sasuke watched the event before him in utter disbelief. For a long time he always regarded Naruto as a rival and someone he had to topple and defeat. This was fueled even more so after Ataka's encounter and defeat to the blonde 2 years ago. What's the source of Naruto's powers? Sasuke wondered. What's his secret? How was it that Naruto, the village clown, attained a power that I worked so hard to try to achieve all my life, whereas I, an Uchiha with great promises, am forced to be an eyewitness to this? Back in the dome, Naruto then turned his attention to Orochimaru, who was now holding his Kusanagi sword in his hands. You're really something, Gaki, Orochimaru smirked, but I won't go down that easily. The blonde was to about ready himself to take on Orochimaru when Naruto-kun, Ryota called out as she ran and jumped into the air and over to him. Henge. Ryota burst into a puff of white smoke before transforming to a long steel staff with a long and large blade at the front end of it. The blonde jumped into the air and caught the staff before swinging it a couple of times before getting the feel of it as he landed down on one of the tree branches. Shodai, Naidame, Dan, and Noeke, after pulling themselves together, surrounded Naruto on different branches with Orochimaru in front. This ought to be interesting, Orochimaru stated as he held and aimed his sword at Naruto. Let's go, Ryota, Naruto said as he swung the staff Ryota turned into a few times. I may be as hard as stone, Naruto-kun, Ryota said, but that sword of his will still hurt me. Naruto charged and flipped to another tentacle-like branch before running across it. He soon jumped off it and flipped backwards as he threw 2 kunais with exploding tags on them in the Sunin's direction. Orochimaru jumped and flipped away from the kunais before they hit the ground and exploded, blowing off dirt and chunks of the ground into the air. Landing down on the ground, Naruto then swung and waltzed the staff around him as though he was dancing with it. Orochimaru smirked as he moved around and readied himself for the blonde's next attack. Finding his moment, Naruto held the staff and rushed at Orochimaru as he took a swung at the Sunin's head. Orochimaru ducked as the blade passed over his head before Naruto jumped into the air and over to him. Once they met up, a fierce sword and staff combat commenced between them. Their blades clashed against each other with every swung and slash they threw at one another. It was like a deadly dance of tango and neither looked willing to surrender to the other. Soon they clashed their blades against each other again and started what looked like a tug of war, placing strength into their weapons in order to overpower the other. Naruto looked to be having the upper hand when his eyes turned to see Shodai coming to ambush him. Just as Shodai was about to swing kick him at his feet, Naruto teleported away and reappeared behind Shodai as he slashed at him. Shodai however turned and caught the blade with both of his palms, stopping the blade from hitting him. Naidame came and kicked the staff from out of Naruto's hands and high into the air as Shodai took the initiative to charge and punch Naruto hard in the chest, knocking him backwards. Seeing his chance, Orochimaru rushed at Naruto with his sword aimed at his heart. Before the sword could even pierce the fabric of his clothes, Naruto shunshined over to Dan up in the trees. The Jounin turned in time to see a fist sent into his jaw, sending him into the air where the staff was falling. As Dan reached the staff, Naruto shunshined again to where Dan was and grabbed his staff as he somersaulted downwards with his right leg stretched out, plunging it into Dan's stomach. Dan was rocketed into the ground between where Naidame and Shodai were. Before the Hokage brothers could do anything, Naruto teleported between them and slashed them both with his staff. Noeke came in and started throwing shurikens at the blonde. Naruto however parried all of the shurikens with the staff. When that was done, the blonde then dashed and body crashed into the genin, causing the boy to go flying off his feet and into the trees. Frustrated with how things weren't going in his favor, Orochimaru went down to the ground on his chest and opened his mouth, letting out myriads of snakes. The snakes coming out from his mouth ranged from constrictors to vipers of many sizes. The dome from Orochimaru's end from side to side was getting filled very fast with many thousands of snakes and venomous serpents that were sent into Naruto's direction. Seeing the danger, Naruto stayed calm as he focused his wind affinity into himself, though the snakes were hurriedly making their way over to him. After a couple of moments, Naruto raced through a series of hand seals with his hands moving in blur vision. When he was done, Katon, Shiroi Gokakyu no Jutsu, Naruto yelled as he opened his mouth, revealing a flash of white light that appeared from inside his mouth. Seconds later, a large powerful ball of bright white fire blasted from out of Naruto's mouth and into the direction the myriad snakes were coming from. A huge explosion occurred, rocking the entire forest area. Yondaime, Jiraiya, and the others had to cover their eyes from the intensity of the brightness of the flames while a strong wind blew past them and the trees. The genins in the meantime used their arms as blinds while trying to make out what was now happening. Eventually the chaos died out, returning the land back to calmness. When everyone opened their eyes to see what happened, what they came across was a shocking sight. A massive portion of the forest was vaporized and burned with a huge and very long dugout created from where Naruto fired his attack. Smoke was still coming from out of the burned areas and all of the snakes were gone. Surprisingly, the dome was still tacked, though Naruto figured that the sound form momentarily created an opening in the dome from where the blast was to be released. The deaths of two of them would have more than likely been imminent had they not gotten out of the way of the blast. Sections of the land within the dome were destroyed also as a result of Naruto's attack. Astonishing, Asuma remarked. He concentrated and combined his wind affinity with Gokakyu. Since wind amplifies fire, Naruto using and fusing his affinity with Gokakyu created a new version of that jutsu. An attack of that magnitude could destroy a small village and wipe out an army. Naruto's youthful flames are truly an inspiration, Guy added while looking on in amazement like the others. I must train much harder to achieve such youthful fires as the ones he possesses. That's my prized and favorite Yondaime Hokage for ya. Anko grinned widely with her chest out, causing the others to sweat drop at both her and Guy. Naruto, Jiraiya thought in wonder as he looked at the boy he helped raise and train over the years. Naruto was holding his chest and catching his breath at the moment. He wasn't going to lie to himself. Using and upgrading one of the Uchiha's prized fire jutsus really took a toll on him since it required a lot of chakra and a concentrated amount of his wind element. He looked around and saw that Orochimaru was nowhere in sight. However, he didn't dare let his guard down, especially since the barrier was still up. Speaking of the barrier, Naruto saw that the sound four were weakening and he knew it wouldn't be long until the barrier collapsed from chakra depletion. Before he could do anything else, however, the ground in front of him burst open as a monstrous-looking figure appeared from out of it. What Naruto and everyone now saw was a body that looked like a large compilation of white snakes with Orochimaru's head now looking more serpent-like on top of it. /N. If you read chapter 344 of the manga, you'll know what I'm talking about. Naruto's eyes widened in shock at seeing the horrific creature Orochimaru turned into. Yondaime, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Anko, and the others with them were shocked and horrified at the sight. Yondaime couldn't help but feel disgusted and ashamed at the fact that the creature in front of him was once his former apprentice. Anko couldn't believe that creature was once her teacher. The genins gasped in horror at the thing that was now facing Naruto. Naruto's opponent was no man, but a monster that had once been in human form. They couldn't believe that the creature that Naruto now had to fight was once one of the famed Sanins of Konoha. Orochimaru, Yondaime said with horror struck, so this is your true body. You became so obsessed with immortality and body snatching that you even experimented on your own body. You're nothing but a set shell of your former self. Say what you will of me, Sarutobi-sensei, Orochimaru hissed. When I'm done killing this brat, I'll come for you next. Shodai, Yondaime, Dan, and Nawaka burst from out of the ground from different directions after taking cover from Naruto's last attack. They readied themselves to engage Naruto again. Orochimaru knew that the attack Naruto used required a lot from him, and the Sannin was now going to use this opportunity to finish him off. You truly are quite a ninja, Naruto, Orochimaru hissed. That attack you used against me forced me to resort to this form. You've been a thorn at my side long enough. It's time we end this. Yes indeed, Naruto agreed as he jumped and landed down on one of the tree branches and stood there. After placing the staff behind him. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Naruto said as four clones came to life, two at each side. What is he doing? The Umbu in pale white said in surprise. Why did Naruto-sama create Kage Bushins? He used a large amount of chakra throughout most of his battles today, and with that fire jutsu he used. And now he just dispensed his last remaining chakra among his clones. Foolish boy, Orochimaru mocked, you really became reckless this time. You must be in a hurry to die, aren't you? Naruto, Sandaime yelled when a horrible revelation dawned on him. Wait. What are you doing? Not giving Sandaime a reply, Naruto went through a very complex series of hand seals while chanting each seal he performed in an undertone before he clasped his hands together in prayer form. That seal sequence, Sandaime said as he felt his heart drop, Naruto's actually trying to use that jutsu. A second later, ghost-like shards of energy started accumulating together above and behind Naruto. Soon the form of a phantom entity appeared behind Naruto, this entity wearing ragged blackish-blue robes and a hood over his face. In the phantom's right hand was a blade shaped as a key of some sort, and around phantom's left arm was a set of chains and shackles that wrapped around a purplish-blue crucified-like spectral form of Naruto that was being projected from the real Naruto in front of the phantom entity. An eerie laugh of some sort was heard by Naruto alone after the entity fully took form. This must be the thing summoned with this jutsu, Naruto mentally noted as he turned his eyes to the creature without turning his head around. Since I'm the only one who made the contract with this jutsu, only I can see it, Shinengamai. Naruto, Orochimaru spoke, you've proven to be more of a problem for me than I counted on. I'll take pleasure in watching you die before I return and destroy Konoha and everyone you hold dear. That's not going to happen, Naruto challenged. Konoha is my home, and as a Konoha shinobi, I'll do whatever I must to protect it and everyone there. Holding his staff, Naruto jumped off the tree with his 4 clones following close by. Genjutsu, Kokwangyo no Jutsu, Illusionary Arts, Infinite Darkness Technique, Nidaime said after forming a seal and causing entire area inside the dome to be filled with nothing but total darkness. You have spirit, Naruto, Orochimaru's voice said through the darkness, but that will do nothing to stop the inevitable destruction of the organization known as Konoha. Naruto was then punched by Shodai, Dan, and Noeki unseen in the darkness. After regaining his ground, Henge, Ryota said before transforming into a shield that Naruto held with his right hand. He stood and held his shield for his defense as the attacks continued. The destruction of Konoha will never happen, and it's not some organization as you so call it. Naruto spoke with determination as recalled all those he regards as important to him and the time he spent with them, from family, Tsunade, Shizune, Jiraiya, Sandaime, Kakashi, Yondaime, his closest friends, Hinata, Ino, Anko, friends and associates, Ayam, Tuke, Haku, and all the rookie genins. I came to look and love Konoha as a society of precious people. Although we're not related by blood, I consider all of them as important. Naruto deflected another attack as he continued using the shield Ryota transformed into to deflect the oncoming attacks from Shodai, Dan, and Noeki. Despite this, he was still recalling why and for whom he was doing what he was doing. Teachers, Iruka, Kurane, Guy, Asuma, future generations, Konohamaru, Mogi, and Udon, and every other shinobi and villager of Konoha, be it clan leaders, special jounins, and so forth. Important family. Something worth protecting with everything I got and all that I am, Naruto shouted. Family, Orochimaru's voice mocked through the darkness, such a wasteful concept. I'll crush you in all of your endeavors. Humph, Naruto countered as he wiped his lips, I'm the one who inherited the will of fire of this village, a fire that'll never be put out by the likes of you or anyone else. I am the son of Yondaime and Yondaime Hokage. Even if some leaves should fall, newer and stronger ones will sprout and blossom in their places and continue to help strengthen Konoha together. Such ones will continue to make this village stronger than before. Calmer, isn't that right, Konohamaru? Strongly, Orochimaru, I will now show you an original jutsu you've never seen before. Naruto clasped his hands together in a seal form and exclaimed, Behold! Funjutsu, Fuka-Fujin. Chapter 35, Kinjutsu Uji. Fuka-Fujin. Meanwhile outside the dome. What's going on? Anko asked loudly, I can't hear or see what's going on inside that damn dome. The Genjutsu Nidaime-sama cast completely blocked out all sight and hearing to everyone outside of it, Kurane explained. Can you cancel it out? Anko asked. I can't, Kurane replied, for one thing, it's inside that dome which we presently can't penetrate. And for another thing, that Genjutsu is at a much advanced and stronger level than the Genjutsus of my own, especially since it was a Hokage who cast it. It'll require something stronger to dispel it. Damn it, Anko muttered, hating the idea that she was unable to do anything to help and rescue Naruto from Orochimaru. Jiraiya knew something very bad just happened and he was hoping against the odds that Naruto was alright. Naruto, Tsunade said worriedly and lowly but enough for her to be heard by Jiraiya, who was still holding and helping her stay on her feet. Please be alright. The female Hokage was still weakened and unable to fight anymore due to severe chakra depletion and the use of her Sozo Saisei. Kakashi, Shizune asked, you've copied over 1,000 jutsus. Isn't there one you know of that can crack and break this barrier down so we can get Naruto Otauto back? If I knew of such a jutsu, Kakashi retorted, I'd have used it by now, don't you think? Shizune couldn't refute Kakashi on the logic he used on her just now. Sandaime had a facial expression that radiated dread and despair. He knew which jutsu Naruto had just used and he knew what it entailed. However, that jutsu Naruto used was one the Sandaime didn't allow Tsunade to gain a contract with. What Naruto didn't know was that Sandaime had signed the contract with that kinjutsu, besides the Shiki Fusion. Damn it Naruto, Sandaime thought, you didn't have to resort to using that kinjutsu yourself. If you'd have listened to me in the first place, I'd have willingly done that jutsu in your place. Tsunade and Jiraiya others saw the look on Sarutobi's face and the look he gave alarmed them. Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya asked, what is it? Is there something going on within that dome besides a battle we can neither hear nor see? Sandaime just looked crestfallen as he sighed, this whole thing, it's my fault. Naruto shouldn't have been the one to dash. We know Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya interjected, I'm just as worried about him as you and everyone else are. The Toad-Sunin thought back to the broken picture back in his apartment. Just thinking about that alone was enough to confirm a thought that Jiraiya was desperately hoping wasn't true. In another part of the forest. What is this? Ino yelled, where's Naruto-kun? I can't see through that damn darkness inside that dome. A high-level genjutsu, Shikamaru said, Hinata, can you use your Byakugan to penetrate and see through that genjutsu? I'll try, Hinata said, Byakugan. Activating her bloodline limit, the Hyuga heiress tried and made an effort to see through the barrier. She did this to the best extent that she could. Can you see anything? Sasuke asked. Nothing, Hinata replied dejectedly, that genjutsu is a really strong one. I'm unable to see through it. How troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, something is going on in there and we can't see or hear through it. I really hope Naruto-kun is alright in there, Hinata said, I really hope nothing terrible is happening to him in there. We all hope that Hinata, Tenten assured, especially after all that he did earlier. There's no way he should be defeated that easily. Naruto-kun has been kicking ass all day, Ino added in, he will win this battle and there's no doubt about it. That's right, Lee agreed, Naruto-kun won't give up so easily. His youthful flames will shine brightly and break through the darkness of that genjutsu. Kiba, Shino, Choji, Sai, and Sasuke stayed quieted as they looked on at the dome in front of them. Soon the others joined in returning their attention back on the dome. Naruto, Sasuke wondered, exactly what is it that's going on in there? And how do you intend on getting yourself out of that trap? Back inside the dome. A jutsu I've never seen before, Orochimaru's voice asked through the darkness while still in his white snake form. Naruto and his 4 clones stood their grounds with the real Naruto in the center still holding the shield Riot had turned into. Naruto was completely unable to see anything through the thick darkness as he kept his guard up. All the while, the Shinengami was hovering above and over Naruto's form with Naruto's crucified and chained spectral projection floating in front of it. The dark entity looked to its left with its dark black eyes with dull yellow-orange pupils and raised its left arm to the air as while still holding the chains and shackles wrapped around the spectral projection that were in its left hand. The sleeves of the Shinengami fell backwards revealing its pale violet skin. I better hurry with this, Naruto thought, this darkness is getting too dangerous. Show me, Orochimaru's voice said through the darkness. Naruto muttered. Just then more attacks came at Naruto, who used his shield to deflect them though a few of the attacks pushed him back a couple of feet. Soon another attack came and knocked Naruto totally off his feet and down to the ground on his back. What's wrong? Orochimaru asked, are you planning on letting your ancestors torture and beat you to death now? Please show me this new jutsu of yours. Naruto pulled himself together and stood back up off the ground before picking up and holding the shield again. It's not ready yet, Naruto thought, how long is it going to take? A minute later, the Shinengami released the chains and shackles wrapped around the spectral projection. The chains then wrapped around both of the Shinengami's shoulders and upper arms. The Shinengami then opened its left hand with cracking sounds being heard only by Naruto and his clones. With each finger and its thumb it opened. A moment later, the Shinengami started chanting in a language that was not of the human world, /n, think of the Shinigami's voice from the anime. Naruto and his 4 clones were the only ones that were able to hear the chanting. After several more moments, the Shinengami was done chanting and seal markings started making its way down from its left hand to its arm. After the markings completely covered its arm, it reached into Naruto's detained spectral projection, pushing its hand and arm through it as the projection arched backwards as though it was in a lot of pain. Naruto for his part felt a massive rush of pain and unspeakable coldness pushed through his body as he cringed and grounded his teeth trying to bear the pain. He coughed out some blood from his mouth and spat it down to the grass floor. He was breathing hard while trying to regain his composure. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" Ryota asked, still in the form of a shield. "Yeah," Naruto lied, "I'm fine." "What's wrong?" Orochimaru asked, "Are you wobbling already?" Naruto ignored the Sunin and focused on his objective. A minute later, all of his 4 clones ran in 4 different directions through the thick darkness. "Now, Naruto through, I have to capture them. I'll only get one chance to do this, so I better make it count." Soon all 4 of them shushed and stopped before grabbing onto something they came in contact with. "I got you," said the clones. They were struck on the back with shurikens, but had enough strength to keep from puffing out of existence while refusing to release their hold on their targets. "Come forth," came Naruto's command as the Shinengami reached deep into his spectral projection. The phantom arm came through the lower chest and tore a round hole through the green Jounin-like vest of the clones and reached into what the clones were holding onto firmly. All 4 phantom arms of the Shinengami reached in and grabbed hold of the objective targets in the darkness. Soon the genjutsu started weakening before the darkness started dispelling and returning sight and light back into the dome. Eventually the darkness was completely gone and everyone outside the dome was able to see what was happening. Everyone saw that the 4 Naruto clones were holding onto Shadaime, Noeke, Nidaime, and Dan on their shoulders in that particular order, while the real Naruto was standing in the background some distance away from his clones and their targets. What they didn't see were the phantom arms sticking out of the clones' bodies and into the 4 resurrected ninjas' bodies. His clones were able to find them faster because Naruto had placed jutsu markers on them earlier after healing himself. The darkness disappeared. Orochimaru acknowledged, "What is this jutsu?" "Naruto," Sandaime yelled out to the blonde as he and the others saw how the 4 resurrected shinobis were frozen in place with Naruto's clones holding onto them. With the exception of Sandaime, no one knew what was going on. Naruto watched with a heavy heart as the phantom arm started exacting the souls from out of the 4 ninjas' bodies. "I'm so sorry, Naruto," Shodai apologized to Naruto. The blonde shinobi now had tears forming in his eyes. "I'm sorry that we gave you and your mother much grief," Nidaime said with regrets laced in his voice. Naruto now had tears falling down his face as his head partly lowered. "Nei-chan, Naruto-chan," Noeke said with a voice that expressed deep sorrow and the want to cry, "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't mean to do what I did. Nei-chan, forgive me." Tsunade had tears falling down her face as she started crying. "Tsunade," Dan said apologetically, "I never wanted or meant to hurt you and your son. I'm sorry for hurting you so badly." At this point, Naruto closed his eyes and lowered his head as his tears flowed freely. Tsunade recalled Naruto's words from earlier, "Kaa-chan, I hope you'll someday find it in your heart to forgive me." The female Hokage started crying even more on remembering those exact words from earlier and hearing and seeing what was now happening in front of her and everybody else. She now knew which jutsu Naruto resorted to using, and it greatly pained and broke her heart to see the events play out. Everyone around her saw that she was crying openly. Jiraiya held onto her as she openly accepted his embrace and cried on his shoulder. This was one of the rare occasions that Jiraiya forsook his perverted nature. Sandaime too had tears falling down his face, feeling bad for both Naruto and Tsunade, and for his 2 former teachers. "Please forgive me," Naruto wept bitterly, "great-grandfather, great-granduncle, Noeke-jisan, Dan-san." The 4 clones, while holding onto their targets, started pulling away from the 4 ninjas as their bodies started losing color and animation. Soon Shinengami's hands fully extracted the souls from out of the bodies as the clones pulled away entirely from the bodies before the bodies started decaying and falling apart. Fun, seal, Naruto clones yelled before the 4 souls were absorbed into their chest. The clones cringed while feeling the souls being locked into them. When it was done, all 4 of them started breathing hard before a seal of some sort appeared on their chest. /N. The seal looked very similar to the now Naruto from the anime has accepted the spiral as was made up with diamond-shaped rings and there were 4 quarter-sized dots on the outer top, bottom, left and right sides of the seal. The 4 bodies the souls there previously in eventually fell apart completely back into dust, ash, and dry mud as they poured down onto the ground. In the process, 4 gray and pale bodies of 3 14-year-olds and 1 10-year-old girl surfaced from the 4 piles of ash, dust, and dry mud. Naruto, Genins, and the older Konoha nins recognized 3 of the 4 bodies and to their shock, they were the 3 Oto Genins from the Chunin exams, Zaku, Kin, and Dosa. The 4th and the youngest of them was another female Oto Genin whom the Konoha nins never met before. What the dash, Kiba said in shock as he and the other saw sight. Those are the same Oto Genins we fought in the Forest of Death and in the preliminaries, Sakura pointed out. That Kinjutsu must have used them as human puppets and vessels to bring back those 4 ninjas Naruto defeated, Shikamaru made clear. What a horrifying jutsu. Sandaime couldn't help but feel deep remorse and pity for what Orochimaru had done to his own 4 Oto Genins. Tsunade and Jiraiya couldn't believe that Orochimaru, their own former teammate, sunk so low as to use youths of his own village as puppets and tools for his own twisted use of the Edo Tensei. But then again, Orochimaru had experimented on people of various ages and both genders without any regards to ethics. The heartless creature, Tsunade said lowly with mixed emotions of disgust and anger. Naruto for his part already had a strong hatred for those who rob people of their innocence and use them as weapons and instruments for their own personal use and dispose of them after their use have worn out. What he now saw and acknowledged only served to fuel that hatred all the more. You, Naruto said to Orochimaru while controlling his emotions, you sacrificed your own genins. Flashback, 2 years ago. Naruto, age 11, was standing on top of the Hokage monument looking over all of Konohagakure no Sato with Sandaime, in his 60s, and Tsunade, age 48, standing next to him at his sides. It was a bright and sunny day and everyone in the village were carrying on with their lives and daily activities. Naruto's ninja mask was hanging around his neck as his clothes and long blonde hair danced with the cool breeze that was blowing by them. Turning and looking at Naruto, Sandaime said, Naruto, your mother told me that your goal is to become the next Hokage and her successor, yes? Naruto smiled brightly and nodded, that's right. And I've been working very hard to achieve that goal to become a great medic nin like Kaa-chan and Rokyudame. Becoming Hokage is my dream. Tsunade simply smiled while Sandaime chuckled and nodded back before he continued, I see. Back when I was younger, around a little older than your age, your great-grandfather, Shodame-sama, said something to me that stayed with me for a very long time, even down to this day. Really? Naruto asked curiously, what did you tell you? Quoting Shodame, Sandaime said, the comrades of Konoha are parts of my body. The villagers believe in me, and I believe in everyone. That's what a Hokage is supposed to do. Those words were of great significance to me as I applied their meaning into my life and role as this village's Hokage. I treat and guide this village and everyone who lives here as though they were my own body. I want you to always remember those words as they will help you down your path as you mature. Naruto, Tsunade spoke up as she turned to her son, as Hokages, we use all resources to help benefit everyone in our village and we protect the ones who love the village and believe in us. We put the interests and needs of the people ahead of our own and stake our lives for this village's protection and prosperity. Plus, we grow those who'll inherit our will and take care of the next generation. Always remembers our words and take them to heart, for in the future you will be the. Naruto looked at both Sandaime and Godame as they both looked back at him. The two grown ups said together, Hokage. End flashback. Instead of protecting them, Naruto said while finding himself crying for the 4 Oto Genins who were sacrificed and used for the Edo Tensei, you used and cruelly sacrificed the lives of your own Genins as if they were mere objects. Such an act from a Hokage is an abomination. My Genin's lives, Orochimaru spat, "Stupid boy. Don't waste my time talking about such trivial nonsense." "Did they not believe in you?" Sandaime yelled at Orochimaru. The Sunin, still in the form of the compilation of white snakes, hissed at the aged Hokage and retorted, "That's of no significance to me. In life, success in everything requires sacrifices, and I'll make as many of those sacrifices as needed to ensure my success." "Monster," the Umbu in pale white remarked. "You cold-blooded bastard," Naruto cursed, "you're inhuman. You have no conscience." Naruto's 4 clones were still breathing in and out before puffing out of existence. The shield in Naruto's hand then hinged back into a staff with the same long and large blade. "I'm immortal, boy," Orochimaru declared, "you can't dream of beating me. I will become the ultimate being." "You're like a snake that dreams to fly but is forever damned to crawl on its belly," Naruto sneered. The Sunin hissed venomously at the blonde. "Indeed, Orochimaru, you will fly on this day," Naruto stated, "in the fiery talons of a phoenix." The Sunin hissed again at the young blonde. "Ryota," Naruto said while gripping the staff, "let's go." Naruto charged at Orochimaru with the full intent on taking him out. The snake Sunin charged at the blonde with his mouth wide open as though he was seeking to swallow Naruto whole. The blonde however slashed at Orochimaru, who managed to dodge the attacks before the many snakes making up his body came to life and reached for the blonde with their mouths and fangs wide open. Naruto jumped and flipped away from the snakes while hacking off some of them. Orochimaru hissed from the pain as the sliced-off snakes fell dead to the grass. "I'll swallow you whole, boy," Orochimaru yelled as more snakes came and rushed at him. Naruto evaded the snakes with timed precision before leaping into the air and down over to Orochimaru. The snakes dashed to the air with the intent on grabbing and biting Naruto to death. Naruto, however, pulled out 3 kunais with exploding notes attached to them and threw them at the snakes. The kunais exploded on the snakes and scattered their remains around the field while making an opening to where Naruto could reach Orochimaru. When Naruto reached the Sunin, he used the blade of the staff to stab through him. However, Orochimaru burst into a large pool of brown mud and sank into the ground. He replaced himself with a mud clone, Naruto realized while looking around for the real Orochimaru. Moments later, Orochimaru, back in his human form with several injuries and blood around his clothes, burst from out of the ground holding his Kusanagi sword in his hands. Naruto speedily turned to block the sword before it stabbed him. Both fighters started clashing their weapons of choice against each other, trying to overpower the other. Soon, Naruto got the upper hand and smacked Orochimaru's sword away and out of his hands. Jumping back, Naruto speedily threw the staff into Orochimaru's direction. "I got you," Naruto said as the staff flew at Orochimaru. "Sene Jashu, hidden shadow snake hands," Orochimaru said as he thrust his left arm forward before snakes came from out of his sleeves and wrapped around the staff after them grabbed it. "Damn it," Ryota swore, seeing that she is captured. As the last of his snakes confined her, Naruto suddenly appeared in front of Orochimaru and grabbed him tightly. "What the dash," was all Orochimaru could say as the blonde looked up at him defiantly. "You're finished," Naruto exclaimed before the Shinengami reached into his spectral projection and reached into Orochimaru's body. The snake Sunin then felt an eerie feeling through his being. "What is this feeling?" Orochimaru wondered in confusion and fear. "I can't move my body. This is bad." Forming a seal with his right hand, Orochimaru summoned his sword and levitated it up off the ground. At this point, Ryota reverted back to her human self, though still confined by the snakes. She turned and saw the floating and glowing blade of the sword aimed at Naruto from behind, as did everyone else. "Naruto!" Kakashi yelled out urgently. "Look out!" Shizune warned loudly. "Naruto!" Anko yelled out to him, "Behind you!" Their cries seemed to have fallen on deaf ears as the sword readied to attack. The genins were wondering why Naruto wasn't moving out of the path of the sword that was directly behind him. "That idiot," Sasuke yelled in his mind, "what is that dope doing? Can't he see that he's about to be stabbed from behind?" "Naruto-kun," Ino screamed, "don't just stand there. Orochimaru is going to kill you." "Naruto-kun," Hinata thought, "please do something." The remaining genins were thinking thoughts similar to those of the Sasuke, Hinata, and Ino as they waited to see what was going to happen next. Back inside the dome, both ninjas looked into each other's eyes with strong hatred and contempt. "Now die!" both Naruto and Orochimaru yelled to each other. Orochimaru then did a gesture with his finger to the best he could do with his limited body movements, causing the sword to come flying straight into Naruto. Ryota, seeing the danger, focused her remaining chakra into her right arm. Suddenly there was a splash of blood that sprayed into Orochimaru from Naruto's right chest, with the glowing blade of the Kusanagi sticking out from his chest. A hand and arm made from the ground had burst and grabbed the sword's handle, trying to prevent it from going any further into Naruto's back. Ryota's right hand was glowing with a greenish-brownish glow with her hand in the ground. She was manipulating her earth affinity to form the arm sticking out from the ground and holding the sword that was trying to push into Naruto. The arm tried to pull the sword out but it put up a resistance. Naruto coughed painfully as some blood seeped out of his mouth. Everyone was shocked that Naruto allowed himself to be stabbed from the back when he could have fully avoided the attack. Only Tsunade and Sandaime knew why Naruto chose not to dodge it. "Damn it, Naruto," Anko yelled angrily, trying to fight back the tears in her eyes that wanted to pour out. "You dumbass. What the hell is wrong with you?" Orochimaru himself was surprised that Naruto didn't bother to dodge this attack and instead allowed it to stab him anyway. "I know you could have dodged it," Orochimaru asked with a strain on his voice. "Why didn't you dodge it?" Naruto held onto the snake Sunin while feeling the cold phantom arm of the Shinengami through his stomach gripping Orochimaru's soul, trying to fully extract it out of him. "Damn it," Ryota swore while trying to pull the sword out. "Fuka Fujin," Naruto replied with a grin on his face with blood seeping out both ends of his mouth. "In exchange for this kinjutsu's effects, you must hand over your life to the Shinengami. This is a jutsu that kills the caster after its completion." Orochimaru tried to perform a hand seal but found himself unable to perform any seals. "I can't use any of my jutsus," Orochimaru realized in horror. "There was no point in dodging your attack," Naruto added. "I'm going to die anyway. When this sealing is complete, my life will be taken from me. This self-sacrificing jutsu, which I created, is the revised version of the ancient Shiki Fujin, the Kinjutsu Oji that the hero of this village found to use against the Kyuubi. You will perish with me through the use of this very jutsu." "So," Orochimaru retorted, "this jutsu is based on the one that Yondaime used against Kyuubi all those years ago. Revising a jutsu of that level would require the expertise of an experienced seal master. And I just so happen to have such expertise," Naruto shot back, "which is why you're caught in this death trap." With the exception of Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Sandaime, everyone was speechless on hearing what Naruto revealed. He not only created an S-rank Kinjutsu Oji based on the original Shiki Fujin, but he bravely and willingly used it, fully knowing the penalty for using such a jutsu. Jiraiya was pained and hurt deeply on seeing what was happening before him. Just like with Yondaime, he was unable to do anything to save him, and now he was unable to do anything to save Naruto, the boy he came to love and prize just like his father. Though Naruto looked at Jiraiya as an uncle figure, Jiraiya, however, had always looked at Naruto as if he was his own son. The Toad Sunin was angry at his inability to save those whom he valued and cherished. Tsunade just wept bitterly as she still held on to Jiraiya. She suffered a major blow when Orochimaru summoned her dead loved ones to fight and kill both her and Naruto, forcing Naruto to resort to using that Kinjutsu Oji in order to stop them. She felt completely helpless to do anything to stop what happened and was now happening. To her, she was forced to see herself lose her loved ones again, and now she was about to lose her son, another precious person who wanted to become Hokage, to that accursed necklace. The very thought made her cry even more. Sandaime lowered his head in respect for Naruto's bravery and self-sacrifice. However, he too felt angry at himself. He kept berating and telling himself that if he had done what he should have done all those years ago, none of this would have happened. For Sarutobi, all that has happened on this day, he believed to be his fault. At the same time though, he was angry at Naruto and his stubbornness. The aged Hokage pleaded with Naruto to allow him to trade places with him and finish the job for him. Sandaime knew what the Edo Tensei entailed and the Kinjutsu Oji that was required to undo it. But like Yondaime, Naruto was too hard-headed and refused to listen to him, putting the safety of everyone else before his own. "He's truly your son," Sandaime thought sadly, Yondaime. Shizune was openly weeping at what was happening. Her kid brother, whom she dearly loved and helped raise, educate, and train all his life, was going to die a sacrificial death, which he consciously chose to do. She saw her uncle brought back to life for a twisted purpose that went against everything he lived and gave his life for, and her beloved Otauto, little brother, was forced to give his own life in exchange to stop him and the other three ninjas. If anything, Shizune felt that if she knew how to use the Fukafugen, she'd have done the sealing herself if it meant Naruto's survival. Anko was futilely trying to fight back the tears that were coming down her face. Like Sandaime, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, and the others, she's seen a lot of deaths and destroyed families. She knew what price war always involved. She's seen many shinobis of Konoha die during her ninja career, but Naruto's situation was different. He wasn't just another shinobi who was to be replaced. Though she never came out and said it aloud, Naruto was precious to her and was one of the very few people she ever opened up to. He was the first young man who sincerely wanted to become her friend and didn't fear to be seen with her in public. She grew to love the blonde in many ways, and to see him give his life to stop Orochimaru felt like a stab in her heart. Kakashi wasn't visibly crying outwardly, but inwardly. He grew fond of Naruto as the boy's older brother figure and always sought to help and protect him. The copycat ninja, with all of the jutsus he ever copied with his Sharingan, felt useless in stopping what was happening. Just like with Obito, Rin, and Sensei, Kakashi thought sadly, I couldn't save them. The genins were utterly speechless at what was happening. Hinata and Ino were openly crying, while at the same time angry that Naruto resorted to using such a jutsu. Sasuke didn't know what to say at the moment as he found what Naruto was doing hard to believe. He figured that with all the power the blonde possessed that Naruto would have came up with a way to stop Orochimaru and the four ninjas he summoned. The raven-haired Uchiha thought that what Naruto had done was downright reckless and foolish. Back inside the dome. I will tear your soul from out of your body and seal it, Naruto said. Orochimaru's face grew more terrified when he tried to move again. My body isn't moving, Orochimaru noted to himself. I'm sure by now that you can see it since half of it is already outside, Naruto continued while his body was shaking a bit from the feelings of both the sword and Shinengami's cold arm piercing through his being. Those whose souls are sealed with this jutsu can never rest in peace. Instead they suffer in the chasm governed by the Shinengami. Orochimaru had an angry face with eyes that expressed both fear and dread as Naruto continued, the souls sealed with this kinjutsu are entwined in deep misery, and are forever doomed to plummet and fall into a cold lifeless hollow abyss of eternal nothingness. The Shinengami gripped his key-shaped blade in his right hand as it smiled sinisterly. It then raised its right hand slowly to the air. What's happening? Orochimaru asked with fear in his voice. Its smile grew even more darkly as its hand rose higher. As the confined spectral projection stood where it was, 8 captured souls popped out of the projection while sticking onto it. All 8 of them were mourning in great despair and anguish. The Shinengami fully lifted its right arm up into the air with the keyblade in hand. The keyblade glowed in a dull silver color before shooting a beam out from it, opening a pitch-black spiraling vortex that had an endless vacuum wanting to suck everything into it. The Shinengami then turned its attention to the mourning souls and used its keyblade to slice and separate them from the spectral projection of Naruto. Immediately after that was done, some of the chain and shackles around the projection flew off and confined the souls tightly, locking and chaining them by their necks, arms, waist and ankles before being sucked into the vortex. Their screams grew louder with more anguish and agony as all 8 of them fell into the abyss. This is the Shinengami, Orochimaru asked fearfully. Their screams gradually died out as they were completely swallowed whole into the spiraling chasm, vanishing totally. Don't screw with me, Gaki, Orochimaru yelled fearfully, you will not have your way. The Sunin did more gestures to the best his limited hand movements could do, causing his sword to slowly go deeper into Naruto. The blonde struggled with the pain while Ryota tried to pull the sword out of him. Though she knew she was going to die with Naruto because of the choker seal Naruto placed around her neck, she had wanted Naruto to live long enough to kill Orochimaru and take him to the grave with them. Naruto saw that Orochimaru's soul was slowly being pulled back into his body. You know brat, Orochimaru grinned, while I was in that snake form, all of those snakes I let out at you and that girl released toxins which contaminated the air you both are breathing. It's serving to kill you both faster complemented with your stab wound. The blonde coughed painfully before snarling at the snake Sunin. Come on brat, Orochimaru smirked, hurry up and die. Damn it, Naruto strained, feeling himself growing weaker by the second. Back in Konoha. Gaara and his team have taken care of the giant snakes and the Odo ninjas were dealt with. Baki and his fellow Sunanins who joined his side took care of the remaining problems. The other Sunanins who after learning of Orochimaru's betrayal and murdering of their Yondaime Hokage, turned on the Odo nins and helped stop the invasion. Though they were saddened that they lost their leader and many of their comrades because of Orochimaru's deception, they were determined to make the Odo nins and Orochimaru pay for their treachery. Genma was still in search for Kabuto, but the elusive shinobi was still nowhere to be found, much to his frustration. Hate and the other Jounins had finished their tasks in dealing with their enemies and soon hurried to where the civilians were to check up on them. Hayashi, Inoichi Shikaku, Choza, Shivi, Entsum, and all those in their clan were done with their tasks in taking out the invaders. They then regrouped with their fellow Konoha nins. Baki and his Suna nins also regrouped to analyze the situation. "What's your report?" Baki asked. Asuna Jounin gave a salute and explained, "The situation and all enemies have been contained, sir. The threat to Konoha is over." Baki nodded in understanding as he turned to face Gaara and his two older siblings. "Where's Naruto?" Gaara inquired, "Has he returned?" Baki sighed and shook his head, "We haven't seen him. Last I heard, he and other Konoha nins went after Orochimaru to retrieve Tsunade-sama. Right now we don't know what's become of him." The red-haired Jinchuriki stayed quiet while gathering his remaining strength. He and his siblings had put up a hard fight against the giant snakes and the Odo nins. Temari was wondering how Naruto was doing since he hadn't yet returned. She at first figured that with the way he defeated Gaara nearly 2 months ago and took out the ninjas at the stadium that he'd have been done with his enemies in no time flat, especially since he himself is a Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. She found it surprising that the blonde hadn't yet returned. "Let's get back with the other Konoha nins," Baki suggested, "perhaps they can fill us in on what else has happened." All of the Suna nins agreed and followed Baki back with where the remaining Konoha Jounins, Chiyunins, and Umbu left in charge were. Meanwhile inside the dome, Naruto was growing weaker and found that he didn't have as much strength as he thought to fully exact Orochimaru's soul from out his body. Ryota herself was growing weaker as well as her grip on the sword through the use of the arm she made was slowly loosening. Making things worse for the former Iwa Jounin Kunoichi was the fact that the choker seal activated and started to slowly choke her. She realized that the seal Naruto placed on his chest above his heart was responding to his weakening vitals, thus triggering the choker seal around her neck. Ryota started coughing and found her breathing rather difficult and painful in fact. With the poison in the air and the choker seal acting against her, she didn't know how long she'd last. "I don't think I can hold out for much longer," Ryota thought while partly choking on her breath. "I would have never thought that we'd meet our end like this, Naruto-kun. Well, at least I can take comfort," smiled weakly, "knowing that we'll die together." "I win," Orochimaru chuckled, "I will survive this fight while you, Naruto, will have died for nothing. You're too weak to beat me, and you have no power or strength left in you." "Weak and no power and strength you say?" Naruto retorted, "It's funny really, 2 years ago, Itachi once told me that hatred give us shinobis our power and strength. You on the other hand, believe that by learning and mastering all jutsus on earth that one will have power and strength. I find both concepts flawed and destructive." "And what would you know, boy?" Orochimaru mocked. "While growing up," Naruto answered, "Aji-san, Kaa-chan and Ero-jisan taught me that when a person has and finds people who are precious to him and desires to protect them with his life and everything he is, that's when his true strength and power will manifest. That's what made people like Yondaime and others like him strong and powerful. And neither you nor Itachi have anyone who are precious to either of you, which is why both you and Itachi are incredibly weak based on these standards." "Shut up," Orochimaru spat, "spare me your ridiculous ideology." Naruto lowered his head before releasing a chuckle. Ryota and the Konoha nins looked at Naruto momentarily as if he went crazy at that moment. "The phoenix," Naruto spoke between his coughs, "is said to be the bird of legend that has been around for centuries. There are a few variations, but the basic idea is this: the phoenix is a supernatural creature, living for 1,000 years. Once that time is over, it builds its own funeral pyre, and throws itself into the flames. As it dies, it's reborn anew, and rises from the ashes to live again. Alternatively, it lays an egg in the burning coals of the fire which hatches into a new phoenix. My will of fire is like that of the phoenix, looked up at Orochimaru, which is why you won't win this fight. You stupid boy, Orochimaru mocked, you're making talk of wills of fire and the story of the phoenix. Such blinded beliefs won't save you, and like I said before, you won't live long since my snake's toxins have poisoned the air in this dome. Naruto felt the sword piece a little further into his right chest. He partially groaned in pain while Ryota struggled to stay conscious while trying to pull the sword from out of Naruto, but the poisoned air trapped inside the dome served to weaken and kill her faster as every second passed. Back in Konoha, Iruka was with the civilians, women, and children at the sanctuary. Konohamaru, Mogi, and Udon were with Ayame and her father with Iruka close by. Konohamaru-chan, Mogi asked, do you think Naruto and Ai-chan will be alright? I'm sure he will, Konohamaru assured confidently. No one can beat Boss, and he did summon that fox Kunoichi to help us earlier. Like I said, Boss and Jiji, grandfather, will protect us, with the other ninjas helping them also. What are you three over there talking about? Ayame asked as she went over to them. Udon answered, we're just worried about Naruto and Ai-chan and the others with him and Sandaime-sama. I'm worried about them also, Ayame admitted. We can only hope for the best and believe in their abilities to protect us and the village. Iruka stepped in and asked, are all of you alright? Just fine, Iruka-san, Ayame assured. The kids were telling me how concerned they are for our ninjas' well-being. Iruka nodded in understanding. I'm worried for them also. But as ninjas, we all took an oath to defend this village and all of its inhabitants, including all of you. As we speak, our defense plan is being carried out and our enemies are being driven out. Konohamaru nodded in confidence. None of you have anything to worry about, Iruka assured. This war will end before you know it. As Iruka said this, however, he sensed that something was up. He saw how Anko left in a hurry to go after Naruto after the blonde went after Orochimaru on his own. He knew Naruto was strong, but he saw Naruto's actions of him going after the snake Sunin by himself was downright careless. Iruka-san, one of the Chiryunins called to him as he hurried to him. What is it? Iruka asked as he turned to the approaching Chiryunin. Some Sunanins are here to see you, the Chiryunin answered. Iruka nodded and followed the Chiryunin to where the Sunanins were. When they got there, Iruka saw Baka, his genin team and several other Suna Jounins with him. Baki-san, Iruka addressed, how is the situation? The snakes are finished with and the Otonins are retreating, Baki replied, your village is freed from the threat. I'm happy to hear that, Iruka said, that's the first good news I've heard all day. Gaara asked, have you seen Naruto? Iruka sighed, not since the start of the final Chiryunin exams. Gaara said nothing as he maintained a reserved demeanor. Temari sensed how Gaara expressed a bit of worry for Naruto, although it didn't outwardly stand out. Though she didn't voice it, she couldn't help but worry a little for the blonde shinobi also. Besides, Naruto was the first person in a long time who sought to help and become Gaara's friend. In spite of everything Naruto learned about Gaara and how he became what he was and how they were originally planning on invading and attacking Konoha, Naruto still sought to help Gaara, especially since he could relate to Gaara in ways that others just wouldn't understand since they're both Jinchurikis. Naruto, Temari said in her heart with her eyes closed, thank you for helping and saving Gaara. Iruka now wondered how Sandaime and the others were doing. If anything, he could only hope that they were alright and that Naruto didn't try anything extreme. Back inside the dome. Looking at the Sunin, Naruto said, Orochimaru, you're right about one thing, the poison your white snakes released in the air inside this dome was unforeseen and it threw my timing off completely. I was totally unprepared for this. Therefore, I don't have enough strength or time to fully exact your soul. However, your ambitions will end here on this day. Never, Orochimaru yelled back, my ambitions will never end. Alive through this and my ambitions will live on forever. Orochimaru, Naruto grinned, I will hand you down this damnation, for wasting and polluting your mind in jutsus and for damaging my family's name and honor. Orochimaru, for using and wasting your knowledge and mind power for selfish and corrupt aspirations and using it hurt my family and friends and the lives of so many innocent people, it's very clear that you're not deserving of a mind. Therefore, I'll take it from you. What did you say? Orochimaru yelled in fear. Naruto yelled loudly as the head of Orochimaru's soul was being pulled out from his body. The Shinengami raised its keyblade up and prepared to slice off the head. Orochimaru gasped in horror upon seeing what was going to happen. "No!" Orochimaru yelled as the keyblade was brought down. "Stop!" Naruto released Orochimaru and pulled away just seconds before the blade came down and sliced off the head of Orochimaru's soul. Ryota lost her grip on the sword after her chakra and elemental manipulation wore out, unwillingly leaving the Kusanagi deep plunged through Naruto's back. "Fun!" Naruto yelled as he held his hands together in front of his chest with a flash of spiraling white light in front of his chest. When the flash died out, Naruto was now holding a fossilized-looking serpent in his hands that had the same seal on its belly side. Naruto dropped the snake to the ground before the snake puffed out and vanished. Orochimaru's head started turning dull purple while choking on his last words. No, Orochimaru choked, "I, immortal, I, can't, die." The Shinengami, after throwing the head of Orochimaru's soul into the vortex, released Naruto's spectral projection from its confinement as it was now being sucked into the vortex as well. "Now you can no longer pose as a threat to Konoha or to anyone else," Naruto declared. "With your head gone and sealed away, your body can no longer survive, making all of your jutsus useless. The destruction of Konoha has failed." Orochimaru dropped to the ground at Naruto's feet. There was no doubt about it, Orochimaru was dead. "Damn it, Naruto," Sandaime yelled bitterly, "damn your stubborn attitude. It didn't have to come to this. You didn't have to do this. I'd have sacrificed myself in your place had you listened to me to let me fight in your place." "Aji-san," Naruto smiled weakly while feeling the life being drained from out of his body as he started growing weaker with every passing second. "This was a jutsu I created. And I wouldn't have allowed anyone else to use it if I myself wasn't willing to use it and pay the price for it. Plus, how could I show and prove to everyone that I dream of becoming Hokage, if I wasn't willing to give my life for those whom I regard as precious people, just like my father did before me?" Sandaime felt as though he was living a repeat of history. Yondaime sacrificed himself and all he had going for him to stop Kyuubi and save Konoha, and now his only surviving son and link to the world sacrificed himself and all that he had going for him to stop Orochimaru and save Konoha. Naruto was following in his father's footsteps, and though Sandaime was proud of Naruto's selflessness, at the same time he was angry that he couldn't do anything to save the boy. The blonde turned to Tsunade and the others. From what he saw, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Sandaime, Shizuan, Anko and Kakashi looked to be crying out to him. A second later, purplish-black seal markings of some sort started appearing around Naruto's face, ears, neck, then his hands and feet. Naruto smiled weakly at them as his eyes started closing slowly, much to Tsunade's horror. Tsunade was screaming to Naruto to hold on and keep his eyes open, but his sense of hearing was gone. As Naruto's eyes was closing into the darkness, the last thing he saw was a scene of Yondaime, Tsunade, Sandaime, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Shizuan, Anko, Hinata, and Ino standing and smiling at him. As Naruto stood there after his eyes fully shut close, his head slowly lowered until it hung down, with his last breath leaving his lungs and mouth. At this point, Ryota's head fell to the ground as she lied there motionlessly with her eyes closed. Kyuubi's cage. "It's dark," Kyuubi said as he saw the pitch darkness coming to engulf him. "It's getting so dark. The light, fading, my power, fading. Why?" In another part of Naruto's subconscious, Yondaime was seeing the darkness approaching him as well as all of the lights in the hallway were being absorbed into the shadows. "Naruto," Yondaime said lowly as the darkness came closer to him. A few moments later, Naruto's body started falling to his left towards the ground. The Genins and everyone else watched in disbelief as the young ninja that was believed to be the second coming of Yondaime fall lifeless to the ground. For Tsunade, it was as though time has slowed down as she watched the boy she loved and raised all his life was collapsing towards the floor. Flashes of her memories showing her nursing, raising, teaching and training Naruto started flashing in her mind, from the time of his infancy to the shinobi who battled and defeated Orochimaru. Her heart shattered when she saw Naruto's body hit the ground with an audible thud, lying there motionlessly on his left side with the Kusanagi still pierced deeply through his right chest. What everyone saw now before them was a harsh reality: Naruto was dead. Check the description for the links to the author.